G'day podcasters, welcome back to Season 4 of True Blue Conversations with your host, Adam Bloom. We'd like to thank Tactical Recovery for sponsoring this show. Head on over to tacticalrecovery.com.au and use the code TRUEBLUE for one hell of a discount. Tactical Recovery, magnesium-based muscle care, salty products for sore fuckers. Raise your glasses, podcasters. This episode of True Blue Conversations is brought to you by Wet Canteen Bottling Company, the perfect way to commemorate and celebrate life's most special occasions. Elevate your moments, savour the taste, and make them truly unforgettable with Wet Canteen. Head on over to wetcanteenbottlingco.com.au and use the code TRUEBLUE for your exclusive discount. Now, on with the show. Welcome, loyal listeners of True Blue Conversations. Today's episode is proudly sponsored by Australian Warfighter Coffee. Veteran owned and run, driven by a simple yet powerful motto: people over profit. Every dollar goes towards supporting veterans and first responder charity groups. Head on over to AustralianWarfighters.com and use the code TRUEBLUE for your exclusive discount. Because let's face it, any other coffee is just brown sadness water. Now, let's get on with the show.
G'day, welcome to True Blue Conversations. I'm Adam Bloom. Today's special guest is Sergeant Rachel Ingram, retired public affairs photographer, and she has joined us today to talk about her 19-year career in the Army and her life after service. Hi Rach, thanks for joining us on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me, Adam. I really appreciate it.
It's an absolute honour and a privilege to have you on, Rach, and I've been wanting to get you on for a while, and I'm so glad we can catch up and do it. And so, Rach, before we get into your Army career, let's talk about Rach Ingram as a young lady growing up.
Like the young lady part, probably not so much. I grew up in the central west of New South Wales, so down from you, down the other side of the Blue Mountains from Sydney.
Yep.
In a little country town with my mum. I have an older sister and I had a younger brother. My brother passed away from suicide when he was 20, and my older sister's 11 months older than me. She's in Sydney. So yeah, we grew up in this little town, and I loved horses, and I used to have a pony, used to ride, just do what country kids did, just ran around, swam in the river. Yeah, so. What
was school like for you? Were you pretty good at school?
Attending? If your attending's been good, yes. My sister was the brains.
Yeah.
So we had nuns. So I went to the St Mary's Central School in Wellington, New South Wales. There was that and the public school.
Yep.
The public school probably would have been cheaper for Mum to send us to, but Mum thought I would get into too much trouble there. So, yeah, and we had nuns the first part of my schooling.
Yeah.
And
Tough?
It was tough because my nan, she was 5 girls and 2 boys in her family, and 3 of her sisters became nuns, Sisters of Mercy. So I got a lot of, Rachel, your Sister Julian and Sister Claire wouldn't be very happy with you. I got a lot of that.
And Rachel, not Rachel, you know you're in trouble.
Yeah, so I knew that. So look, maths, don't ask me about it. It was a sport. I did a lot of sport at school.
Yep.
I actually really liked history and science for some reason. Yep. I really enjoyed that. And I could never work out why our science teacher, I remember it was Kim Templeton was his name. I think he was a major in the reserves. But he used to make us line up in 2 lines and march into the science lab and form up from the back to the front, or the front to the back.
Yeah.
I used to go, this is really weird. And then, obviously, I think it dawned on me one day, and I was in the army, and I went,
yeah.
That's why. But I didn't like school.
Yeah.
I as I got older, I couldn't. My sister and my brother did 11 and 12.
Yeah. I
had no inclination to go to university. All I didn't want to do was work and earn money. I just wanted to get out of there, get out in the world. I was going to be a soldier, so I couldn't be a soldier and do year 12. So it just didn't make sense to me.
So what was your first job, Rach? What did you do?
My first job, I was working while I was at school. I worked at the local saddlers.
Yep.
Tony Burns, he's no longer with us, but he had the local saddlery in town.
Yep.
And I had a horse, so I had a little pony that I used to ride and go to pony clubs. So obviously with Mum being a divorcee and a single parent, I used to work after school and on Saturday mornings for Tony, and he would give me stuff. Like he would, instead of giving me money, like he always bought me a pie and a Coke from the bakery across the road, but he would say, what do you want? And so I'd have like a bag of brushes, and then like we'd go on and go, righto, you've worked that off. What do you want? And I got myself a saddle, like...
Yeah, wow.
Excuse me,
Yeah,
a
right.
saddle, and like, because of something... I think saddles, when I was growing up, like, were $400, like, inobtainable.
Expensive, yeah.
Like, unbelievable amounts of money in those days. You know, even a second-hand $150 one was out of reach for us. So, yeah, I got this second-hand saddle, and I took it home and just worked, and then one day he just said... Okay, Rachel, you paid that off. You can have something else. That was my first job.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And have you still got that saddle, or did you keep that saddle? No.
I don't know what happened to him. I don't know what happened. Like I had a lot of gear.
Yeah.
When I think about it, I don't know what happened to it.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
That just part of my life is gone. It's just a mystery.
Yeah.
When I left school.
Yeah.
So when I left, obviously towards year 9. I think in year 9, Mum threatened to take the horse away.
Yeah, right.
She said, if your marks, your grades don't improve, the horse is going.
Yep.
And which I didn't know at the time. We didn't even own the horse. We borrowed it off Mum's friend. I thought it was mine for years. I went like, Mum said, who did you think owned the yard and the stable and where all the food come from? I went, I don't know. I just sort of come with it.
Yeah.
But she did. And I went, my mum won't get rid of it. Like,
Yeah.
she's a single person. She can't drive a horse float. She did.
Yeah, right.
So I came home from school one day and my grades hadn't improved, and she said the horse is gone. Pebbles is gone. I go, where's Pebbles gone? She goes, it's gone out in the paddock and it's not coming back till your grades improve. So it was like a year.
Wow.
And then on the day that like a year later, at the end of the term, at the end of the school year, she drove me out of town. Went, I could have walked out here. And she dropped me off with the bridle and she pointed to a paddock, and there was my little grey pony in a paddock with 20 other horses running wild. And I spent nearly all day trying to catch her, and a quarter under ride her all the way back into town.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that was, so my grades were bad. Look, school's school to me. It's something I had to do. I love sport.
Yep.
I play sport outside, but yeah.
You know, it's
I wasn't an academic by any means.
It's funny, Rach. Most veterans that I talk to, or first same thing. School wasn't our thing. We, and we're always told by the teachers, God, you guys will amount to nothing, and then you just find your way, you find your tribe, and so you mentioned you wanted to be a soldier, but before you joined, was there any family members that had served in the Defence Force, or were you the first?
No. My nan's two brothers, Tom and Gossie, went to World War One.
Yeah, right.
I never met Gossie. They did return.
Yep.
I never got to meet Gossie. I met Tom. I was very little. He was had a bullet. Well, Mum said he got shot in the head, but he used to have a gap in his skull where I could, as a kid, I could put my fist.
Yeah.
And he was at Wentworth Falls, up at the memorial home up there for years, and we used to go up on weekends, take Nan up, and we used to call him Uncle Tom.
Yep.
No idea about his service. I knew he was in a war home and he'd been a soldier. I had no comprehension. I was like, I don't know, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Yep.
When he passed, he eventually went blind, and so I actually have his war records, and he did get shot at Gallipoli.
Yeah, right.
And on it says, like, on the bottom he's written, they patched me up with vinegar and brown paper and sent me back. He got charged with eating, got charged like threepence for eating a can of preserved iron, whatever that was, like probably bully beef in a can, I don't know. And he said he doesn't care because he could be dead tomorrow.
Yep.
So both of those served. My dad's father was the 2nd 12th Engineers, RAE.
Yep.
He was a prisoner of the Japanese in Malaya for a very long time, and he was a Cecil Albert Hopton Ingram, but we knew him as Morgan.
Okay.
So he spent most of his World War II in a Japanese prison camp. He came home extremely unwell.
Yep.
I never got to meet him either. My grandma told me that he was definitely, she thought her husband had been replaced by the time he come home. So my aunt Joanne was the youngest, she was still at home.
Yeah.
And grandma told me that, so my dad there's 4 brothers and 1 sister and 4 boys. And Morgan would come home from like the pub, 6 o'clock swill, which they consider people that did that an alcoholic.
Yeah,
like not like we see alcoholics now. He drank every day, but he drank at the 6 o'clock swill every night. And he would come home, and if the kids, my dad and the kids didn't eat all their dinner, Gran said he would explode. He would explode. Right. And he would force them to sit at the table till dawn, because food was so valuable. Or he'd take it away and they'd just come back for breakfast and he just put the old chops back in front of them. Wouldn't waste food.
You can understand why.
Yeah, and Gran said that she never understood. And then obviously Morgan worked on the railway in Wellington, New South Wales, and it was just one day, his insides were fairly messed up. Besides his brain, I could imagine from what he'd seen and what you read they've been through.
Yep.
And he was walking along the train tracks one afternoon and dropped dead from a heart attack, and that was it.
Yeah, right.
He was gone. So, but as the years go on, and more comes out about what happened to people in the POW camps, Gran was really shocked, and then had a better understanding
of who he was,
of what had happened to him and why he was the way he was. She said it was just a shame that she never had that opportunity while he was alive. She couldn't support somebody that didn't tell her anything, and they just didn't talk.
But you know it yourself, Rach. Like a lot of that. So World War One, World War Two, Korea, Vietnam, they didn't speak. They just got on with it as best they could and just muddled through life. And it's. It's just that time, that generation, and my grandfather was World War II veteran. Same thing. He was just told, forget it. How do you forget? Like, you can't. And we'll talk about your service like as we get into the podcast. But how do you do that? Like, and you understand, and it's only after that they're gone that you go, we wish we had known, it would have been so different.
Absolutely, Adam. And you think about, you said you've done it, which I've done as well. It's gone to Passendale and Somme, Bretonneux and places like that. And if you just sit for a quiet moment and obviously have an image in your head of what you've seen and the Passchendaele, the mud and all that kind of stuff, and you just go, I don't know if I could do this. Like, you can't conceive it. Not even the worst TV show can ever. Like how frightening it must have been, and
just a wasteland.
You just can't imagine. And they would just, it's even operations and war as it is today. We'll never see the like. Thank God we'll never see the likes of that. But you cannot comprehend. Or you can't. I always have this thing. I never say I'm exhausted, because I always say I'm fucking tired or I'm done. But I never say I'm exhausted, because I read a book about one of the soldiers who was in the trenches in France in middle of winter, mud up to his knees, and he just said, "I'm just exhausted." So there was a word that came, and I never use it, because I think I'm never that. Am I that tired?
No, I'm fatigued, but I'm not exhausted. Different. And it's those battlefields speak to you, don't they? Rach?
Exhausted is exhausted, isn't it? That's a word that I think about when I think you're just laying. It's inconceivable.
And it's a very
and you couldn't tell anybody, could you? Because you can't tell anyone now. They don't really get what you're doing or where you've been. So imagine trying to tell them that. And we've got a freer voice now, to speak.
And I know when you went over to the Western Front as well. It's such a moving place, and you go in those cemeteries and you just see 10,000 people, and you're like, hang on, I don't know 10,000 people, but there's 10,000 headstones next to me. It's just so hard to, and they're beautiful kept cemeteries, and you just look and going, this.
25, 50,000 people, men killed on one day. one day
Yep.
on the size of a football field.
Yeah, yep.
How do you get away from that?
Yeah.
How does anyone live?
Yeah, you can't.
You know.
Yeah, and
It's you just can't. You can stand there. You can go to like Suncorp and you stand there and you go, this whole crowd's gone.
Yeah, and just
in an instant, in a day.
And like you said, you've got your. They volunteered for that. They volunteered. They weren't professional soldiers like you guys were.
Yeah.
They volunteered to go to that,
Absolutely.
and it was the grand adventure. And I don't really know if it was a grand adventure, you know. But yeah,
I haven't ever heard anyone interviewed coming back from there that said, I was really happy with my grand adventure.
Yeah, no, I don't. Yeah, no.
Yeah. So that's where it come from. So uncles and my pops.
And then so you said that you wanted to be a soldier. Where did obviously you had your family connection, but where did the willingness to serve your country come from for you? Where was it?
It's very embarrassing. Which isn't embarrassing. My local doctor, who was the doctor when I was born.
Yeah.
With my mum when I was born, was Nathaniel Barton, Dr. Nathaniel Barton, or Colonel Nathaniel Barton. He went to Gallipoli, served in both World War I and II, took his horse Cossack.
Yeah.
They're a very prominent family in my hometown, they had a lot of land. He was with the 5th and the 7th Light Horse, I believe, and he had a photo of himself in uniform in the waiting room in his local surgery.
Yeah, right.
And with him and his horse. Then I saw Gallipoli on telly with Mel Gibson, and that was it. I was going to war because I had a pony, Pebbles. Pebbles and I were going to fight the Turks at Gallipoli in 1978.
Yeah, right.
So
a couple of years before Gallipoli came out.
So, but I'd seen all this, and I sat with my nan.
Yeah.
So I sat with my nan, and we looked at photo albums, and she explained different things, and it's just something we used to do on a Friday night if we stayed at Nan's.
Yeah.
And I just had this fascination with Dr. Barton, and he had his horse, and I had a horse, and then eventually I saw Gallipoli, and I went, if you've got a horse, and you're from the country, and you can ride, you can go in the army. And I used to practice.
Yeah.
So my nan got me she used to volunteer at St Vincent de Paul to sort the clothes.
Yep.
And she got me a green shirt and green pants. I used to just ride Pebbles around with my brother's wooden sword, slashing things. Like get a chaff bag and put it on the clothesline.
Yep.
And canter around my nan's backyard, slashing chaff bags.
Yep.
And I could actually get on Pebbles sideways like an Indian.
Yeah, right.
And I thought, no one's going to be able to shoot me if I'm racing to get the Germans and the Turks.
Yeah.
And that was it. I had a horse.
Yeah.
And I wanted to go and be in the light horse. And I was going to be a soldier in the light horse.
Yeah, right.
It didn't dawn on me until later on when someone brought it to my attention that I was female. Do you ever see any females in war movies? And I went, oh. So they said females can't be in the army.
Yep.
Gallipoli's over, and there's no such thing as a light horse anymore. And I went, oh, dream shattered.
Yeah, right.
But I was still going to go. And like the old days, so recruiting used to come around to little towns. We never had a recruiting office. They'd come to the local neighbourhood community centre, which was, I think, so a huge Indigenous population in Wellington, and that was a community centre when they had a PCYC, they did boxing and stuff like that. So they would just give the guys a room there, and they'll be advertised that they're going to be there, Thursday, Friday. Yep. So I just went in, I saw this. I don't even remember, I can see him, but I don't remember his name. He was a staff sergeant. Yep. And I spoke to him and told him I wanted to join the army. And I was ready to go. When can I go?
And that was it?
That was it.
Yeah, right. And that was in, so you
1986, I had to finish school, year 10.
Yep.
So Mum said, I don't care what you do, but you will finish year 10. So my brother and sister were going to do 11 and 12. But Mum said, if you start 11, you finish 12. And you do not live unemployed in this house. Yeah, so by the end of the Christmas holidays, you'll have a job or you'll be doing something or on a course. So my course was the army. Yep. did all the training. So he gave me like a piece of paper to take home, like to run and do push-ups. So I did all that, and I played a lot of touch football, so I was pretty fit.
Yep.
I rode a horse a lot, so I was always outside. And yeah, I ended up going to Parramatta for recruiting. We had a chat about this earlier.
Yeah.
And yeah, there was a downturn, 1986, there was a downturn in taking female soldiers. And over all the states, they wanted 250. So on the day I was there, they took 15. And we all sat there, and they had a great big table. It was covered in folders, and the staff had said, you've passed,
Yep.
but we can only take 15. We'll pull a random 15 from here, and that 15 will be the ones that go, and the rest of yous will have to wait a year. And I just didn't even think that I wouldn't get picked, and I didn't.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I'm devastated, like cried all the way, 8 hours home. Don't they know? Like I was sitting in a cafe in Sydney, in Parramatta, crying to my mum, like, don't they know I want to be a soldier? Like, I'm meant to go. It was me. That's what I want to do. But, and I missed out. I did check in with the staff sergeant, like the next month he'd come around, and he told me just to keep at it, stay at it, and eventually you will, just wait the year and you'll reapply and you'll be fine.
Yep.
Just keep doing it. I never saw him again after that. But he did tell me that none of those people, those 15, made it. Sort of go, yeah, because they picked the wrong people.
Yeah.
But that was it. I just wanted to do it.
Yep.
I just thought being a soldier and serving your nation was the greatest job in the world.
Yeah.
I didn't even know a great deal about it. I knew nothing about corps or
Italians.
Nothing.
Yeah.
I knew nothing. Shane Nidri. I don't know if you know Shane Nidri. He's a 3RR. He lived across the road from me, and he went to the army.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and I think he played a lot of rugby for the army. Coco knows him. Great guy, but lived across the road. Stayed friends ever since. And he went to the army. And I went, well, I'm going.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so I just waited, and then I had to go out in the world and work for a while.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. So so obviously you regrouped after that, demoralising, not achieving your dreams, and then you go out and work, and then we just biding time till you could go again.
Well, I thought so, yeah. That was my plan.
Yep.
Was just to try and mark time there.
Yep.
And all I knew was, this is terrible. All I wanted to know, all I knew is I didn't want to be, everyone become a hairdresser's apprentice. Every girl that I went to school became a hairdresser's apprentice back in the 80s. Or they were pregnant. And there were two things I put on my list that wasn't going to happen to me. I was not going to be like 17 and 18 pregnant or a hairdresser. So, so I just went and worked. I had a job. I did some visualised merchandising at Gross Brothers. I moved to Canberra, to Queanbeyan with some friends, and I worked at Puff and Donuts for a while. Life lessons. Yeah. Just lived and rented, and I think I was shocked, like our rent of our little 2-bedroom, and it was a flat. It wasn't an apartment, it was a flat. Yeah. And it was like $125 a week, and and we used to still go out on a Friday night and buy clothes, and used to,
you could stretch your money back then.
We could scrape mould off bread. It was good training. And eventually, that's what I did. I just lived and worked, and then eventually came back and went, well, it's time to go. So I put my paperwork in, and it was basically instant. And
I think for you, as you said to me off air, it was probably the best thing. At the time, it wasn't when you 86 when you went to join, and you were cut away. But go away, get that life experience.
Absolutely.
Then it helped you going forward when you joined in 1995.
I don't think it just helped me when I joined. I think it set me up for my army.
Yeah.
My life in the Defence Force.
Yeah, right.
Because I had been broke. I've had to catch buses. I've had to make timings.
Yep.
I had bosses that told me what to do.
Yep.
You're late, you got sacked.
Yep.
So you had all this stuff if I'd gone from 86, maybe it would have been harder. The only thing that was pretty hard is I was working at a pub in Dubbo actually for a little while before I went in, so I'd obviously just was filling in time until I was going to Kapuka.
Yep.
I was working at a pub and went, oh, Jesus, I might have a drink every night. You have one before you knock off drink.
Yep.
I went, won't be able to do that at Kapooka. But yeah, but it did. I had life skills, and then when I got in, so I was 24.
Yep.
So when I went when I went to Kapooka, so I always knew that the grass wasn't greener. I knew that already.
So was it a bit, obviously, when you went to Kapooka, like bit of light, was it still that shock and awe, or was it?
Oh, yeah.
It was. Yeah. So what do you remember about about basic training, and what was some of the harder challenges that you faced in your time?
MPs on the bus, like everyone else.
Says
fucking MPs
Everyone
screaming
says
on
that.
the bus. Like, here I am, and like, in hindsight, I'm just a kid.
Yeah.
Give me civvies.
Yeah.
Like, give me a break. Seeing the sign, like, everyone's chatting on the bus from Sydney. Then you see those blamey barracks, across that white stone wall.
Did it have the words, this is where...
Home of a soldier.
Yeah, home of a soldier.
Home of a soldier,
Yep,
yeah.
yep.
And yet the bus just goes quiet.
Yeah, right.
Not and you see the beautiful golf course where they told you to bring your golf club that you never get to go on. And then MPs screaming at us. There was tough days there, as there is. We're not, I knew how to iron, and I had all these basic skills because I came from the bush when I was a kid, but making beds and beds being thrown out windows and... every time they yelled, you moved.
Yep.
I'm a very practical person.
Yep.
The theory of the group, not so much. So I'd go into lessons, and obviously you're tired. Like, how you don't fall asleep, you just want to go to bed. I remember sitting in my trunk just going, I just want to go to bed. I just want to lay down. I'm hungry all the time.
Yeah.
So... great people, as you said. We're sitting recording this in the home of someone I went through Kapooka with, so we're all still friends.
Yep. Which you're gonna shoot me that because I was up at your place yesterday, so I could have recorded at your place. So
Adam was 8 minutes from my home yesterday, and I've just driven down the M1 to do this.
I love you, Rach. Good on you.
Yeah, thanks. You're welcome. Yeah. So look, it was a shock.
Yeah.
There was no dryers in those days. It was a drying room.
Yep.
You had to polish your black boots, polish them. But it's just a matter of everything's very new. I probably shot a 22 on a friend's farm, not calculated, organised, rifle firing and passing and failing. I don't like passing and failing. That pressure I've never enjoyed.
Yep.
Of testing.
Yep.
And you've got the skills for it, but there's something about on that day that lets you down a bit. I've never liked it, never have, not even when I was doing Subject 1 for Sergeant.
Yep.
You know it, but just that theory, I just hated it.
And for you, shooting wise, that's a skill you got to learn. So did you have to put a lot of practice into that
I put a great deal of practice into it because I'm a left-handed firer.
Oh, right.
Like all the best firers in the Defence Force.
Yeah.
But they gave me a right-handed weapon. So from the very start...
So you had to try and adapt.
Yeah,
right.
So I was very left-handed. And, don't worry, everyone's right-handed, you're going to be right-handed. So I shot until LF6, which was the final shoot to get you out of Kapooka, and they handed me a weapon, a left-handed weapon with the ejection port on the left side.
Yeah.
I went, oh, fuck. I didn't even know how to hold it.
I
was so used to then transferring it into my right arm and carrying it in my right arm that they let me march with it on my left side sometimes because you didn't have to fire it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was all right-handed. And then on my last day, they said, I don't know, I thought, why didn't you just change the ejection port when I started?
Yeah, it would have made a lot of sense. But I guess, in a sense, it made you a bit you had to adapt. That was the adaptation, and you had to.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I just wanted more time to do it.
Yeah.
It's really hard to zero in on a target when someone's bellowing at you.
Yeah.
Or someone's up the back bellowing at somebody else.
Yep.
Walking around eating their sandwich, with their magazines in their hands. It's really hard to concentrate on being good at it. But I suppose in battle, you don't have an opportunity.
No, that's right.
But it is the training that gets you there to make that
muscle memory.
Yeah.
And for you, because was it 6 weeks or 12 weeks?
13.
13.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So,
12 weeks with a pre-week.
Yeah.
That's,
Right.
one of those.
Yeah. So it was a long 13 weeks, but. Proud moment, obviously, your family came down to see you march out, and what was that like for you? You finally achieved your dream.
Yeah, so my mum and my gran and my auntie and my sister and everybody came. My mum was really happy with the cheap alcohol that was at the golf club. She mentioned that. She's not an alcoholic, I can say, but she did like that. I think Mum was really happy. Mum was very proud. She did say to me, make sure you don't fuck up because then they'll send you back and, don't mess this up.
Yeah.
They said that they reckon I would have been home in 8 weeks because they said I was the most undisciplined person they knew. And I went, really? I didn't even think I was that undisciplined.
Yeah.
But they gave me 8 weeks.
19 years later.
19 years later, yeah.
And not by your choice.
And not by my choice, yeah.
So,
I
think you proved a lot of people wrong, right?
And the only thing that was disappointing, really, I didn't understand at the time, so there was no corps enlistment then.
Yeah, okay.
So the only people that were corps enlisted in all female platoons then as well, so Delta Company, 3 platoons were all female, and we had brother platoons in Delta Company that were male.
Yeah.
Everybody was told at the end. And so we had 4 members go to band corps, 1 go to dental.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and no offence to all my friends out there, you're good people, but yeah, they sent me a catering call. And I just stepped out, I don't know what happened, I just exploded. I said, I didn't do all this fucking shit to end up in fucking catering call. I said, I come here to be a soldier.
Yeah.
And then, I quietly stepped back. I eventually had a chat with my platoon sergeant, walked up, did the knock, waited, he come and spoke to me. And I just said, that's not what I want to do. I didn't come here to do that. I'm sorry. And he said, there's no way around it. They are allotted positions of people they need. I was lucky that my platoon commander came in and she said she'd look into it. She had a look for me, you could go to cooks or stewards. That's it. I went, really? That's my choice? My whole platoon almost. Nearly my whole platoon.
Wow.
Yeah. Girls. They were very good there. I remember saying, if you do something, it's not forever. Keep that in your mind. But it's pretty hard to but probably being 24, I could hold that thought a bit more and try and delve into it.
Younger
if you were 17, 18 or 19, your world's destroyed.
Oh, 100%.
If you had goals of being something else.
But even for you, I think too, Rach, it's the same thing. You could hold on to that, but it's not where you wanted to be. And
corps weren't explained back in those days, so I didn't know you could be a cook and be in Vietnam and be a door gunner.
Yeah.
I didn't know you could. I thought you went into a kitchen.
Yeah, and that was
and
it.
become a chef, and there was no opportunity to do any warfight stuff at all.
Yeah.
So I was against it.
Yeah.
And it's your lack of knowledge.
So
they actually gave me that choice, and I knew that the stewards course was 4 or 6 weeks then.
Yep.
And the cook's course was 18 months, went stewards. And that's what they said to me. I think the platoon sergeant, he was infantry, and he said to me, do it, shut up and do it. Pass it, go out to the wider army into a unit, and then have a look around at what you want to do. And then find it.
Best advice.
And yeah, probably one of the best things I've ever been told in the army was just shut up and just do it. Don't whinge, don't cause trouble. And my parents had worked in pubs, so it was second nature. Yeah. So I just breezed through it, I just had a blast. Yeah. And then, took a posting. My first posting was the 5th Aviation Regiment in Townsville.
Yeah, and we'll get to that now. So you came into that unit at a time that was the worst accident in the regiment's history occurred on the evening of the 12th of June, 1996, when 2 S-70 A9 Black Hawk helicopters carrying the Special Service Regiment guys, and they collided, and so you came in the high ranges and you came into that regiment at a really, really low point How was that, Rach? And how?
Well, one, I didn't know where Townsville was. Two, I had no idea what the 5th Aviation Regiment did. I knew they had some helicopters, but I didn't know a great deal about aviation.
Yep.
Or rotor wing
Yep.
or anything. You're just a Jew. So yeah, I always remember. I remember Jonathan Thurston saying when you first go to Townsville and you open that door of the plane, that humidity head just hits you. I went, you know, from coming from the bush where it can get to 42 degrees, but it's dry heat.
Yeah, dry heat.
Then you go to Townsville.
Humidity.
Yeah, and the humidity. So, look, I think it's crazy, isn't it? My posting to 5AB was I would say, looking back, you know, the best time I had as a junior in the army. You know, you just did your job, you worked hard, you played hard. You were learning all the time. You know, first thing you do when you get into 5AB, they didn't do the LSW at Kapuka in my day.
Yep.
So that was the first thing. They had a really good training set up there, so everyone would do LSW. Then you do a driver's course and, you know, a restricted driver's course. And then, just met people and became friends and worked and lived in the lines, had to live in. And I remember the day very clearly. I used to volunteer for, you know, they say don't volunteer, I volunteered for everything.
Yep.
So obviously, another huge thing is I had never seen a special service operator in my life. I'd only read about them or heard about them. And there they are, like walking into the queue store. Cool. They cool motherfuckers, eh? They were just, like, you're a jube, and there's these guys, and they've got King G overalls on, the top's off, and they're tied around their waist. They're really well built. They're just cruising around like they own the joint, and everybody's in awe of them. They just go to the queues and they get what they want and they're popping off. And like, I just thought I could learn from them. Like, what do these guys do? Yeah. So obviously on day rota, you know, there's a big exercise with the helicopters. And I volunteered with a whole lot of other, you know, privates. Yep. And they were taking packs up in some of the helicopters. And you put your name down to go up. Like, for a night fly. Who doesn't want to do that?
Yeah, cool, yeah.
You know, midweek. Let's go for a night fly, private. So I had my name down. So we're all sitting in the crew room and you go through the process and, or, you know, like the crew are coming out and they're all doing their own thing. Yeah. And, but all of us, we're just sitting there, just all these little privates that had an opportunity to do it. You fill out the forms. Yep. You put your name and your dog, you've got to wear your dog tags and rah, and we're waiting around and it was taking a bit of time. And then I remember Greg Taylor, or Squizzy Taylor as he is, was a sergeant then, I think a warrant officer after that. He was a sergeant at the time, I believe. And he told us to go down the mess and eat. And he said, don't go near the boozer, because we had a boozer on base. Don't go near the boozer, eat and come back up. Yep. So we ate, and obviously they were all there, and they, you know, the operators used to write funny things, and you know, there was a big book there about, you know, what you thought about the meal, and they used to write stories in there, and we used to think it was really funny. And so he's sitting there with them, so they're all sitting there because it's after meal time, so there's just us group and the operators in there. And 5AB and the pilots and the load masters and the fuelies and all that are all down there. Everyone that's a part of that night flying are down there. Yep. And we ended up just going back up to the flight line and hung around for about half an hour, and then they come out and said, they're not taking packs tonight. Fuck off. Yep. Fuck off. I went, oh, fuck. So, you know, you just go back down to your room. I remember clearly, obviously no mobile phones in those days. Yep. We had a phone on the wall. In our living area, we had a common room and then 4 rooms off it. So there was myself, Shelley Gray, who worked at B Squadron, and Julie McNair. We all shared a room. They were at 5AB. They were clerks, and the phone rang. And I remember, and I'm as clearly as I can, I just heard Black Hawks, and I heard them fast, and I heard them low. And I went, because we lived right on the flight line. Yeah. I went, fuck, someone's going to be in fucking heaps of shit. Mm-hmm. Like, they are fast and they are low. Yeah. and that's an untrained person. You felt like you'd touch them coming over your building. Yep. And then the phone rang. But it was like instantaneously. Then you could see the phone ring over in the block across from you. You could just hear, all I could hear was phones ringing. Yep. And I remember Grant Newton, that was on SAR, Search and Rescue, and he just ran into... I remember him standing at the door of my room saying, give me your fucking car keys. I need your fucking car keys. Give me your car keys. So he'd given Lenny's car to his girlfriend for the night. Yep. So he had to get up to the regiment. He could run up there, but
get up there quick.
And that was the start of it. And we all got called in. everybody went up the road to the regiment, and we were locked down. Oh, and that was it. We were in the clothes that we were in. I was in shorts and t-shirt and thongs for 3 days.
Yeah, right.
It was horrible. It was I would have to say personally in my career, the worst thing. Like, I was only new to the army. Like, I understood people die in the army. I didn't understand like that, and that was reality. And I remember I got tasked. I didn't even have a Land Rover license yet. I still hadn't finished the course. And someone just told me, one of the staff at A Squadron or B Squadron just said to me, you take the Land Rover down, go down to the airman's mess and get an urn full of hot water, an urn full of cold water, and biscuits and bungo, get Christmas cake, get everything, bring it up here, put it up in the Pegasus Club. I didn't even have a key to the airman's mess. I actually never even asked about it. I just went down there and broke in.
Yeah, right.
So I broke in, I pulled all the slats out of the old windows, and I climbed in, and I opened the door, and I just filled up the urns, and I put them in the back of the Land Rover and drove them back up to 5A. I couldn't even reverse it. I had to park it, then carry them all out. I broke into the mess.
Yeah, right.
And I didn't actually feel the need to ask anyone. It didn't cross my mind. We knew then that something terrible had happened. We didn't know the full extent at my level.
Yeah.
We saw them shut the doors down on the squadrons, and they were pulling files, and there was just a sense of rushing, emergency, lots going on. I remember being up there, and just that's what I was told to do, so I did it. I would never, ever forget. You stand in the Pegasus Club and there's the flight lines on the other side of the hangars, and I just watched them walk through, and I watched operators walk through in flying suits covered in blood with their gloves ripped off them, and just like ghosts. Mick Williams was the first. He was an operator, redhead, big fella. He was the first man I saw. He was the first bloke I saw come through there, and I just walked up and said, do you want a biscuit?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So they just all sat there, and I just plied coffee in people's hands, whoever was sitting out there.
Yeah.
And and we were just locked down. So we weren't allowed to go out in the town. We weren't allowed to go anywhere. It was terrible.
So for you, Rach, at that point, was that at that moment, did you think this shit's real? Like what we do is dangerous. Like, it's no blinkers are off now. Like, even in training, shit can go wrong, and shit can go wrong really quickly. Was that the moment you went, oh shit? Like, was that a moment for you?
It was absolutely the moment. My very first posting, my first 4 months in the army, 18 men are dead. 2 helicopters have fallen out of the sky. This is real. I hadn't even seen a training accident. I hadn't seen nothing but a broken leg and a broken arm and some cuts and bruises at Kapuka.
Yep.
And when you see what they call the best of the best, when they don't make it, it's just it's grounding. It was very hard. I felt like an outsider. Like, obviously there was all these rules. Like, you walk in a 5-0 every day. There's so many pilots that are officers, so you salute the first officer you see.
Yep.
You never have to salute another one throughout the day unless it's the CO.
Yep.
And it was just like an exciting place that I'd went to, and like helicopters, Chinooks and Blackhawks and Hueys, and this is going to be amazing.
Yep.
And it just turned to quiet. It just like the lights were turned off.
Yeah.
You couldn't go to work and say, oh, good morning, or how you going? Like, how are you today? No one spoke, you just nodded.
Yeah.
And then obviously it just took so long, and then so many funerals, and then so many memorials, and then the inquest. And I remember that Tony Fraser, who was the CO of 5-0 at the time, we would go, he'd call us all in at knock-off on Fridays, and when the inquiry was on, and he would take us into the C Squadron hangar, because I think it was the biggest, because the Chinooks were in there. And we were all standing there, and he would read that week out what happened in the inquiry.
Yeah, okay.
Because he said, whether it's good or bad, I think the members of this regiment should hear it directly from me, and not hear it third hand in the paper or on the news. So, I really admired Tony Fraser for doing that, because that's a tough job.
Oh, 100%.
You know, you lose your own people, but they're your helicopters, they're your staff. You know, it's another unit. Reality snapped me in the face very, very clear from that day on. I think it shaped you because you knew from that day that if the best of the best, knowing their shit like they do, and the best helicopter pilots, the best load masters we've got, if the best of the best, that can happen to them.
It can happen to me.
It can happen to anybody.
Yeah.
And anywhere, anytime. And I always took that really seriously.
Yep.
That lesson.
And what do they say, Rach? Sometimes the hardest lessons are the ones that bring, you don't want to learn them, but you know, and you have to, you know, and I think it's a good, it set you up for your career going forward with what you did. And we'll get to, so you're in that regiment, and then you deployed in 1999 to East Timor, your first deployment overseas.
Yeah. So, I was at 5AB, and then it was actually my RSM. So I always had a desire not to be a cook, and I hardly did any of it.
Yep.
I was up at the Q store a bit. Warren Scotty Douglas was the senior QE there. I think he was Welsh or Scottish, I don't know. He was one of them. They called him Scotty anyhow. We didn't. We called him Sir.
Yeah.
But he always said to me, you'll always meet people in the army you don't like. Just the way it is. He said, and even if you don't like them, there might be something they're good at. And it doesn't mean you have to have beers with them. It just means you have to take that one thing. They might be good at putting up hoochies.
Yep.
Or they might be really good at weapons. He said, take that little bit out of them.
Yep.
And use that. And he said, every day when you watch people, you'll see a corporal that treats people really bad. Take that away and go, I'm never going to be like that. But then you'll see someone that does something. And he said, spend this time while you've got it, watching people and taking. And I think a lot of that came from being at 5AB. You know, a lot of people said to me when I got posted there, 5AB's not the real army, it's aviation, you know. But it has served me well because I've stayed friends with these people my whole life, and I learnt lessons there, and they were the lessons that I learned. The RSM come and saw me and said, there's spots for signal call, to go and do the signal call, radio operators course. He goes, you should do it. So I applied for it, and so I core transferred. Long story short, but applied to go to SIGs.
Yep.
Became a radio operator, was down there for, 8 months or something, Morse code, the whole teletype, the whole lot.
How's that, hard? Learning Morse code?
Yeah, they teach you to do it at, 12 words a minute, and like how fast the speed is, so 12 words a minute, and then when they do the test, they take you back to 8. So I went, how do you go back?
Yeah.
So, I didn't particularly like it, but it was better than where I was.
Yeah, okay.
And I met some really cool people doing it. So, I came back and was posted over to 103 Signal Squadron at Laverack Barracks, which was a big change. It was the real army. 2 battalions on the side of the front gate was nothing like walking into 5F.
Yeah.
A lot more regimented over at Laverack. And, I became a little SIG.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and it was then that, all this stuff in Timor broke out and I got to go there.
All right, so Rach, you deploy to East Timor in 1999 on Op Warden.
Yep.
What was your role over there?
I was a 266 radio operator, so, but basically as this started, there was a company of infantry going to go, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger, and eventually basically the whole of 3 Brigade picked up and went over, and our job was to deliver communications from high to lower. I had only been in Dili. It was quite a shock. It was on fire.
Yeah,
there was nobody there. You still, we got organised and we found a hard standing. We were in this building and a room called the Blue Room that was just covered in dirt and lots of syringes. So they were putting drugs into people and all that kind of stuff that we knew happened then in hindsight. So 103 set up as the signal squadron for the battalion, basically for the brigade. And we're, taking messages and sending messages back to Australia and stuff like that. I think in that, I was quite interested. There was no people there. there was like, I didn't see an East Timorese person. I actually remember being on top of the building, like on a picket, my turn for picket, and I didn't see any birds.
Yeah,
It
right.
was the first time it ever hit me, and I looked around and went, like, there was obviously, I had someone else, and I can't remember who it was up there with me, and I went, there isn't any birds. Like, have a look. Like, there's no birds. Didn't see a bird.
Yeah, right.
Like, you know, animals have a great sense of, animals are, a great sense of danger, and it made me look around and go, whatever's gone on here has been serious. Like the first time I deployed somewhere to see that, like, I remember the smell. I'll never forget the smell of dilly as long as I live. I'll never forget the smoke in winter from fires reminds me of dilly.
Yep.
And I saw no birds. Yeah, and I went, wow, there's no wildlife here. Something scares wildlife away like this. And obviously they eventually came back and went, I saw a bird today, and then you see cats and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So they needed someone to step up. They needed to step up. So there was myself and Darren Fury. He was a SIG as well. He's a Kiwi, Māori, and we got put together to set up a vehicle to hook up and go to Suai on the other side of the island, and to hook up with 1 RNZIR, so the 1st Royal New Zealand Battalion, because they only had 77 sets, turn on, click, talkie, like, and we had HF and Raven, and we went and got on, went down to the docks and got onto, it was really funny, like this, we had to go on the HMAS Adelaide, was going to take us around, and we're waiting for, the Navy to come and get us, so we were on this beach, 4 cars, 3 New Zealands and us 2 Aussies, in Land Rover 110s, expecting to be picked up. Everything's gone awry somewhere, as it does in the military, and we had to spend the night there. There's crocodiles in the water in Timor, which they forgot to tell us about.
Oh, all right, yeah.
So on the radio, when they were telling us that we had to stay there overnight because the Navy would pick us up in the morning, not to get off the vehicles or out of the vehicles and sleep on the ground, because there was crocodiles that could come onto the beach.
Doesn't really give you confidence, does it?
Doesn't give you confidence. It was the most uncomfortable sleep. We slept on the rack on the top of a Land Rover 110, the 2 of us. And to go to the toilet, we used to just climb down onto the edge of the Land Rover and just hang off the side of it.
Oh, jeez,
Scared that our bums were going to be bitten off by crocodiles. So we ended up the next day, we got picked up by the HMAS Lubian, I think, taken out to the Adelaide, and with the Kiwis we loaded onto the LCH. Oh, well, I think we went on the LCH over to, I can't remember. LCH, I think they took us out. We got on the ship and they took us around, and LCH took us back into Dili, into Suai, with the Kiwis. And I remember clearly driving off the LCH onto the beach in Suai, just burnt huts. On fire, burnt huts.
Yeah, right.
The smell of it, just really hard to comprehend. Had my weapon laying across my arms as I was driving, and had all my magazines between my legs.
Yeah.
Like, I really didn't know. And now we know it was nothing like that, but you don't know.
No, that's right.
You know, we didn't know that the Indonesians were gone or what was going to happen, and this place was on fire. So we moved into an area there, with the Kiwis. So, and they were fantastic. They were absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, right.
They set up 1 RNZIR whiskey company. We were set up on the airfield and secured the airfield in Suai. And then eventually the rest of the Kiwi battalion came in and stepped up and took over a building and sorted it all out. And, made ops and officers and sleeping quarters and that. And, the Kiwis are they're pretty fanatic and just amazing people to work with. But the only thing was brigade had stepped up as well into another area of Suai by this stage. And we used to go and get codes, to put into the radios.
Yeah.
Encrypted codes every week for the radios. So you're not allowed, the rule was you weren't allowed to drive between A and B without a cowie. You always had to have someone with you.
Yep.
And there was, when I was off shift, Darren was on shift. So I didn't have a cowie. So I asked around a few of the Kiwi blokes that I knew, but they all had tasks as well, that they had to do. So I had no one to go with me. So God bless his soul, a big fella, big Kiwi battalion sergeant called Moose. He's not with us anymore. He said, I've got an idea for you, bro, come with me. So we've gone down and we've gone to the Q store and we've got a resus Annie. And I'm just looking at him like, he's a sergeant, I'm a digger.
Yeah.
And I'm going, oh, fuck, nah, Moose, I can't do that, eh? He's going, yeah. So we made me go and get a shirt. So I put a cam shirt on it. I put a boonie hat on it and we strapped it in to the side of the Land Rover. And like he's on the gate and he goes, you'll be right, bro, eh? Just don't tell no one. I went, really?
What happens if they ask him? Or is he going to talk? Like, yeah.
What do I get pulled over and I've got a resus Annie in like, and the uniform I had on was my uniform. My other shirt had like Ingram name tag on it. So anyhow, there's me. And I'm not a rule breaker, really. And I'm driving up to headquarters and I get in there and Andrew Sheagog at the time was the OC of 103 Signal Squadron, so I've come in and I'm trying to get down to Trevor Shelley and Weeds and the boys because they held the codes.
Yeah.
But I had to go through past HQ, past the officers. And Major Sheagog at the time, or Andrew as we know him now, he said, I'm still friends to this very day, and his family. And I said, he said, oh, Rachel. I said, oh, yeah, good, sir. He said, what are you doing? I said, I'm just getting some codes, sir. And he goes, oh, he said, you by yourself? I went, oh, no, one of the Kiwi lads is with me. He goes, oh, bring him in. I went,
Oh, no.
I said, oh, I think he's talking to some mates out the front. And he goes, no, bring him in. I went, right, so I will. And I went out and I came back and I tried to sneak past. He goes, oh, where are you? He goes, oh, I just bumped into some Kiwi mates. I said, he'll be in soon. He said, there's biscuits here. Because we had no fresh food at that time. We're all on rats. And like he had some biscuits and stuff.
Yeah.
He said, I'll bring him in. We've got some biscuits. There's coffee and tea over there.
Yeah.
Have some before you go. I said, well, have some before we go. I've got to go out and see Shells and Weeds and just get these codes. I was scared. I'm scared of breaking the rules and lying to people than I was in Afghanistan.
Yeah, right.
And like, I just thought, I'm going to get sent home.
On your first deployment.
Yeah, on my first deployment ever. Like people, and I already knew that a whole generation of soldiers have nearly spent 20 to 30 years in the army and gone nowhere.
Yeah.
And here I am, brand new, still a digger, on my second posting, my second corps, my second unit in the army within, a year.
Yeah.
And I just knew that rules were severe for people that lied to the OCs.
Yeah.
And broke the rules. The rules were you are to have a cowie to protect you if you were driving. And yes, I got the codes and I got out of there. And
What an experience.
got my recess anti-doll back to the queue, so never did it again. I was too scared.
So how long was that deployment, Rach, your first one?
6 months.
Yeah, right.
So when it all got sorted and Australia was coming back, actually the CO of 1R and ZIR made a request for Fez and I to stay. Because if we left, so did our radio capability.
Yeah.
So 103 was going home, obviously, and somebody else was coming in, but they would lose that capability.
Yeah.
So they asked us, would we stay? And we said we would.
Yep.
They asked our bosses, they said they would love to let us, but obviously that went higher than the OC of the regiment and probably the brigade commander, probably went to Canberra, and eventually came back, and the CO of the Kiwi CO had said to us that not that they doubted we'd be looked after, but it has a big effect leaving 2 and taking a whole brigade home, and where we're going to get our care packages, who was going to manage our pay, who was going to do all this once they'd all kind of got
Politics
home.
gets involved.
So we went home, and it was probably the right thing to do.
So for you, I'm getting like proud moment, and because at that stage you'd been out Wellington where you grew up, been to Townsville now, and seeing another country, and a poor country too, and that did you come back from that deployment and think how lucky we are here in Australia after seeing what you saw over there?
Absolutely. The first deployment, I think, is the one that reminds you the most. I came home, and I still do it to this day. When I have a bad day and I'm pretty pissed off, I just walk over and I turn the light off and on. If it's day or night, I go, you have electricity. Pull the tap, you've got free, fresh, running, well, it's not really free anymore, is it? But fresh running water, and the Timorese people are beautiful people. They are beautiful, kind people, you know, and I really enjoyed meeting them, and obviously in subsequent operations over there that I got to go back. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But I had what my idea of poor was not what I saw.
Yeah.
So, it'll come in the bush. A poor person was someone that had a yucky house in town, like when you're a kid.
Yeah.
A yucky house, or they didn't have very good clothes.
Yeah.
That was what you thought poor was.
Yeah.
When you see people in a hut with no rooms, living and sleeping on the floor with chooks and pigs. But although I was quite jealous of their life because I felt quite happy, and that's something
the simple life.
The simple life, I've really enjoyed watching that other side.
It's funny because a few veterans say they don't seem to have a care in the world. They've got the simple life, and they don't seem to. Yeah, they just their smiles. They're just happy with what. And I think we try and overcomplicate things with
Western world.
Yeah, the Western world, and
look, don't get me wrong. I'm sure they have money problems, obviously, and they're people that would want for other things or more or better or education. I'm sure they have worries, but they do. They have such a big heart and a big smile when you meet them.
Yeah.
I don't think you could do that.
You can't put that on.
Yeah, you can't put that on. Yeah, and they're happy with their. Not that their lot in life is set, but it could be set. It's basically set. Yeah. That's their lot in life, and they just do the best they can, and you can be quite jealous of that.
Oh, absolutely. So, Rach, you come back from your first deployment to East Timor, and then you post into the 1st Recruit Training Battalion at the Army Recruit Training Centre from 2002 to 2004. What was that like? Bit of a change of pace.
Kapuka.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so I got a signal, in those days, a paper one, saying that my next posting was going to be to ARTC or 1RTB, and I thought it was a joke because I was a SIG, so I just ripped it up and threw it in the bin. I went, oh yeah, good on you, Comsen, you wankers.
Yeah.
Yeah, you thought you got me, because we used to do a lot of that,
Jokes on you,
Jokes on you, yeah. We'd stand on parade of a morning, the boys are standing there behind you, and then I'm going to go, someone's getting a medal or an award or something, and they're way up the front of the parade ground, and someone behind you go, that's you, Rach, that was your name, that was your number. It's to make you step forward, and you go, you're out. I used to play games like that. And I just thought it was a joke. And I think Marcus Thompson was the OC at 103 at the time then, and we'd been out the range, I was cleaning a weapon. I'd put in a form not to go, request not to be posted there.
Yep.
And he actually came down and stood with me, and he said, I think it'll be the making of you. He said, if you want to fight it, I'll stand with you if you don't want to go. And I just said, look, I just don't think I have the experience to go. I don't, all I had in my mind was how a corporal was when I was going through.
Yep.
So I just said, I don't think I know enough. He goes, I think it'll be the making of you. He said, I think you should go.
Yeah, right.
So off I went. Down I went to 1RTB, and it was a very good learning curve. Yeah. So
sort of shaped your future leadership style. You
definitely,
think?
yeah. And you don't do it yourself. It's the people you work with.
Yeah.
There was a lot of guys. So I went into Alpha Company. The boys that were there. So we didn't have a platoon to start off with, and it was very nerve-wracking to start that platoon.
Yep.
We talked about this earlier. Your weapons standards. So your shooting standards have to be infantry standards, and I think. Your lesson giving standard had to be a 95 and above or a 98 and above.
Yeah, right.
And I think because they assess you all the time on your ability to be an instructor, which puts a lot of pressure on you because you've got to train, but you're always there's a whole team watching you. So haven't even, how do I look after 53 people? How do you do this? But it becomes a pattern, it becomes... you learn about people, but there was people that had obviously been there about to get posted out, but might have another year or another year and a half. You learn off them.
So were you at that stage? Were you a full corp at that stage?
You had to go as full corporal.
Yeah, right.
So promoted full corporal and went to Kapuka. Yeah.
Yeah,
so.
right. And then you developed a love for photography, and where did that come from? And did you ever think that you could turn that into a career?
Well, no, not at all. I didn't even know the Army had photographers.
Yeah, right.
So, well, I knew who Damien Parra was because I had an interest in military history.
Yeah.
So obviously through my relatives serving in World War I and II and watching movies or looking at books or obviously in those days, Mum had Time magazine.
Yep.
So you could boxes of Time magazine and there was stuff from Vietnam and Tim Page, Larry Burrows, Dickie Chappell, like all these people that were, correspondents or war correspondents.
Yeah.
And Damien Parra's stuff I had seen like in books in the library at school and stuff, and I was really interested in, not particularly, I don't know, photography when I was looking at it, but if somebody didn't take those photos, we today would have no conception of what that looked like.
Yeah.
Like, it was more so not just photography, like taking pictures of dogs and birds didn't interest me. It was the correspondence side of the gritty side of it. If someone doesn't take those pictures of those blokes, you see them in the war more. Every time you walk through the black and whites, like, they're all no longer with us, but that's their face. That's where they were. The atrocities that happened during the war and stuff. If people didn't take those photos, no one would believe you.
Yeah.
Even today, if you had told someone about the Holocaust or the mud in the Somme, you have no concept of it because you haven't got an image to look at.
Well, you've mentioned, Damien Parra, and then you've got Frank Hurley from World War One. Like, these are big names, right?
They're huge.
And people know who they, and they captured a moment in time that we've now got.
And Australian history,
Correct.
Australian military history, and Army, Navy and Air Force. This is not just about the Army. It's, people that were on ships and in the air, like all these people.
Yep.
If there is not an image,
people don't know it.
People could never look back to see how do you explain the mud in the Somme to anyone without showing them an image of it or a bit of footage? So, I actually was at Kapuka when I was working there as an instructor that I found out that there was a corps of photographers. I went, oh.
This has got me interested now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where the fuck are they? What do they do?
Yeah. So
I just had an interest in it.
Right.
So I found out that Al Green was a captain, photographer, and I wrote to him for 4 years.
Yeah, right. Obviously wanted the job, Rach.
Wanted to find out, how do I get in there? What do I have to do?
Yep.
Never answered me once. Not once, Al Green. And he was he was a bit of a rock star in the trade and been around a long time. And it wasn't until I learned a lot at Kapuka. I learned everything improved, speaking in front of people, holding true to your values, and that's what I did there.
Yeah.
Because I knew that when I'm training these people, I never wanted to be, like we spoke about it earlier, that person that goes, oh, well, I got treated like shit at Kapuka, so I'm going to treat these people like shit.
Yep.
I understood quite clearly that I was there for 3 or 4 years. I was going to train these people, they were going to go out, and they'll go, oh, who was your section commander? And they'll go, oh, Rachel Ingram, like, she's a bitch, or, she doesn't know anything, and she was like the worst. And, and also, you don't want to give them a hard time or run them down. Well, one, you shouldn't do that, but two, because they might be in a trade that gets promoted quicker than yours. And that's not going to go down very well. Like the bigger picture, they're going out into the wider army, back out where you come from.
Yep.
They might get promoted or get somewhere and they'll come back and go, oh, weren't you my section commander that treated me like shit?
Yeah.
I just thought, I tried to teach them values, and we were very lucky with our sergeants and our platoon commanders. We were allowed to do things in the program. So at night, instead of them polishing boots, sitting in their rooms doing nothing, we used to sit in the hallway or in the common room and put on Australians at War.
Yeah, right.
So we played it. So I had it on videotape. I had the whole collection.
Yep.
So when they do stuff at night or on, we would play Australians at War. A lot of these kids had, I shouldn't call them kids because sometimes they weren't. They were They were men and women of, over 20. They've never knew anything about Korea, Vietnam. They don't know any of this. It's not taught. And how much time do I have to teach them about this? I don't. So what we used to do is, that was just a thing we did in Alpha Company. We used to just play Australians at War at night.
Yep.
And if it was a quiet night, if they just had to do something, they could sit in the common room, like in the foyer, and they could just watch it. And when any time it was pissing down rain, they were locked down because of flus and stuff, we'd play it.
Yeah, right.
This is who you are.
Teaching them history.
Yeah,
this is what
mateship, courage.
This is your brand. Well, this is your brand.
This is who you are. This is why this place exists.
Yeah.
Because of what these people have done and what they've sacrificed.
And I know exactly what you're talking about, because remember the TV show Anzacs, and you watch and they had those from right through World War II, and that was, I watched that as a kid, and then the TV Anzac series, the television series, and that, to me, that's what got me my love and passion of military history, and it just and I think that's so great that they, because you want to learn about your history, because you need to know it to, if someone asks you a question, you need to be able to answer
another
it.
really good fact. People, even after leaving there, people go, "Oh, I'm never going to Kabul, it'll suck." It is a lot of work. Don't get me wrong. It's a lot of work, a lot of hours.
Yeah.
A lot of paperwork, a lot of admin. But there is definitely a reward to it.
Oh, absolutely. Well, you're shaping future young leaders.
I just wish you didn't remember the bad ones so much. You remember the bad ones. There was some, I remember having, just a short story.
Yeah.
We had a platoon in. I can't even tell you which year it was or what platoon it was. We had a man there who had his name was just one name. Like, he didn't have a surname or a middle name. He had a first name.
Yeah.
I won't say it.
Yeah.
Because it's a pretty defining kind of word, but just in case he's out there. But man was fit. And I think he was older than 26. He was, so mature recruit, we would call him.
Yep.
Smart, intelligent, quite worldly. He could do push-ups on his fingertips, fit. So we got to the stage where it was like the day to get your FADA DOSTI, right? Weapon day. So this is the day you come to the armory, you call out your name, you're given a weapon, you read off your serial number, it's written down, take your weapon. We are now going to go out, and we're going to go out and do a safety lesson. First weapon lesson.
Yep.
So he's standing there, there's, I think Brett Truscott, he was 1 RAR. Before he came to Kapuku, I worked with him and a couple of boys from 2, and he's just called this fella's name out. We'll say Jonesy. Jones, he came up and he put this weapon out and he read out the number to him, and the recruit had to read the number back, and the recruit just put his arms up. Like, Truscott and I just looking at him, going, "What's up, recruit?" He goes, "Oh," he said, "I'm a lover, not a fighter." He said, "I don't want a weapon." And I just said, "Where the fuck do you think you are, champ?" Like, really? And we just stood there. He said, "Take the weapon." Recruit, take the weapon. No. And he just backed away and he said, "I will do any job, but I won't do one where I have to, I'm a pacifist. I won't shoot anyone."
Yeah, right.
I said, "Well, you're not going to shoot anyone today because you're about to be marched the fuck out of here. So fuck off." And that was just it. He was gone in 20 days. We had to paperwork him out and had to take him down to Digger James. And I just had a chat to him and I said, "Where did you think you were coming? What do you think your business is here?" This is the home of the soldier. Now, you don't come across to me as a stupid, naive man. What part of soldiering doesn't involve weapons? I said, "Because that's your business. I don't care if you blow a flute,
You will learn to shoot.
Or, you're on radio or you're a clerk or whatever. Your
Soldiering's
business,
your first.
This is your business. When the shit hits the fan,
You go for your weapon first.
This is your business." And he said, "No." He said, "I just thought I could just have a career and do another job." I said, that's called outside of the army. And that was it. He just wouldn't. Weird.
Right. Strange. Yeah. I mean, look, but when you're joining up, it's not going to be. You're not sorting. You're not
Google
sorting,
soldiers.
Yeah, well, you're not sorting flowers or.
No.
And I take nothing away. Florists work very hard, but just an example. You're not.
When you think the home of a soldier, what do soldiers do? What is their basic? What is their basic job?
Yep. Well, it's
It
soldiering.
has a weapon involved.
Has a weapon. Yeah, that's right. So. Before you post into the, or you do a transfer to the Australian Army Public Affairs Unit, you actually posted back to 5th.
So I don't know if they say, I don't even know if this is true. They say if you do your time at Kapooka as an instructor, you get posting in your choice. Well, that's not true, because I know where I would have liked to go, and there was no way they were going to let me.
Yeah.
I knew then, before I left, so I posted out the 2005 cycle.
Yep.
New instructors were coming in. I was going back to Townsville. I always wanted to stay in Townsville. I liked the forwardness of the brigade. I didn't ever want to be down south.
Yep.
I always thought I wanted to be, I was in a relationship with a guy there for a while, and he was in the army, but he'd had a gut full of, land command. He wanted to go down south.
Yeah.
And I just said, no, I come here to be a soldier, I'm staying. So he left and I stayed.
Yeah, okay.
And that's how much it was meant to me to. So I went back to Townsville. Now, I already knew, even though I'd done some more research on public affairs, and actually, as I met Dan O'Mara, because he was involved, and I met him at Kapooka and we found out about it. And I knew then that that's where I was going to go. And I thought, they were going to send me back to 103 Signal Squadron.
Yep.
They would have put me on a sergeant's course. And that's how it works. And I didn't want to do a SIG sergeant course. One, I don't think it's fair to take that course away from somebody that wants it or deserves it.
Yep.
And two, I didn't want to be a SIG sergeant because I was going to leave. So I thought it was a waste of time and money.
Yep.
So they offered me a posting back to 5 as, like the vault creature, looking after this, CI and stuff. CCI gear and stuff like that, and the codes for the helicopters and stuff. So I took that because I knew then that I could probably avoid doing the subject 1 for sergeant. I didn't. They found me, and Signal Corps sent me to Melbourne to do my subject 1 for sergeant. Subject 2 for sergeant.
Yep.
I was on that course. I'd passed everything so far. I didn't go down there to be an arsehole or fail. I just got sent. I said, I don't want to go. They said, you've got to go. I went, okay, sir, I'm going. So I went. While I was on that course, I received a message to contact the RSM at 5:00, so my RSM.
Mm-hmm.
So I did so in my lunch break, and he told me that the 1st Joint Public Affairs Unit were going around Australia to all the major units and doing a course with unit photographers. And I said, I'm not a unit photographer. But I was taking some pictures at 5 Ave and they were allowing me. And Colonel Brett Greenland was the CO at the time. And we're friends. We are still friends today, Brett Greenland and myself. And it's all because of him. So my career started with him. So the RSM rang me and I said, when's the course? And he said, it starts next Monday.
Yeah, right.
But he said, you have to make a choice to leave the course. It has to be your choice. Now, this mightn't work out, but you have the choice, so I'm letting you know. And I said, right, I said. He said, if you end up back here, I will see you. I said, right, I said. So, and that went down in Signal Corps at the School of Signals like a fucking lead balloon. They went ape shit on me. I told them that I would like to walk off course. I wanted to do something else. I had an opportunity to try and do something else, and they said, no, you're not going. I said, yes, I am. And they said, no, you're not. So they ended up, this went on for 4 days. Wasn't allowed in course, wasn't allowed in college, didn't matter if I passed everything. So they wrote me up in a certificate to say that I was incompetent. I wasn't prepared for the course, ticked all the boxes and said, you'll have to come back. If you come back, you'll have to start this again. Now you're going to go to the bottom of the pile. You've been warned. And I went, yeah, okay. So I booked a flight and I paid for myself and I flew back to Townsville. Went up and saw the RSM in the afternoon and he said, here it goes. I said, well, there is one thing, sir. I said, I'm not actually officially on the nom roll at 5 Ave as the unit photographer. And he said, no, you're not. I said, so has this list come out and it hasn't got my name on it? And he said, yeah, your name's not on it. And then I was panicking. I went, have I come all the way back here to attend a roll call with my name not on the list.
Oh, no.
So then here's my second bit of advice. The RSM said to me, you know how it works. Turn up on Monday, immaculately dressed with your backpack. They'll do a roll call. After every roll call, they say, answer his name, excusing rank. And then at the end, they'll do that. Your name's not called. So they'll obviously say, is there anyone's name not called? Put your hand up. Say, yes, Corporal Ingram, 5th Aviation Regiment, unit photographer. He said, I'll either see you at morning tea or I'll see you in a week. And I went, okay, sir, no worries. He goes, you good? I went, oh, I'm good, sir. Left. Don't think I slept all weekend.
Yeah.
Probably had a little bit too much alcohol Friday night, trying to work my head around how I'm going to lie.
Yeah, which you said earlier. You
doesn't
didn't.
sit too well with me. But, and I did it. So I stood there, I was really scared. Those little things scare me, not the big things. That scares me.
Yep.
And I stood there and they answered the roll. And there was that Laverack, there was boys from the battalions and, 3-4 cab, everybody. Basby, Sisby, everybody had somebody there.
Yep.
And there was like 3 of us. And they said, yeah, Corporal in 5th Aviation, just no cuff too tough, push it out. And they went on, they said, and they're like flicking paper.
Yeah.
And they went, oh no, oh well, right, everyone up in the room. And I went, fuck, I fucking did it. So I was there, so I did the course for a week.
Yep.
I came back and it went really well. And then I put myself back to, I was at 5AB, I put myself through a night course at the TAFE.
Yeah, okay.
I paid for it myself, didn't even ask anyone, just in my time. Obviously, we knew when we had to go field and when we didn't. So, I just put myself through the course.
You found your passion.
Yeah, and then I started taking, because I used to go to watch the Army Rugby, so when I knew when it was on, I knew when the Brigade Obstacle course was on, so I kind of went up to the Brigade and said, what officer's going to be in charge of it really? Like, he's in charge of running the Brigade Obstacle course, and they told me who it was, and I went to and said, would you mind writing a little piece for me, and I'll turn up and take some photos, and so I would send it down to the Army newspaper, and because they'd said to me, the more you get known, the better chance you ever have if their position becomes available.
Yeah, right. Well, taking your initiative yourself.
So I did that, and the combat training wing up there, they always had stuff on, so I would go up there and they'd have unarmed, defence courses and all the units, especially the brigade units, they'd always be doing something, whether it was running or a live fire or whatever. I kind of got there, and then eventually I bumped in and met Mark Tanzer.
Yeah, right.
And he said, why don't you come over here and be the public affairs photographer for the brigade? And I said, can you do that? And he goes, well, we could ask. So we put it to Colonel Greenland, and he just said, give me the weekend to think about it. I will look to see if I can backfill your position. So if there is someone to cover your position. Yep. So I saw him, he called me, I went to work normally on Monday morning after PT, he called me up and he just said, we're going to let you go over. I went, what? Like,
really?
This is
This is
the
happening.
OC of this regiment's going to let me go and do something?
Yeah.
And he said, he said, they've got someone to come. He said, you'll still belong to 5A. You'll be posted here. We'll become your priority. So if we ever need you to take photos in helicopters or fly around in Black Hawks, you have to come back here. We're your number one priority. And I went, yeah, sir, okay. If someone has to do it, I'll do that. Really? And let me go over.
Yeah,
and
right.
that was it. And he said, you can just come back here for Boozer Parade every Friday afternoon or Thursday afternoon. Check in with us. If you need anything, let us know. Off you go. See you there. Go over Monday. So I went over there and in a little office in the Sizzler building with Mark Tanzer and his clerk, and that's what we started doing. Yeah. Running around the brigade taking photos.
And then it just spiraled, it just kept getting more
and more. And then, Op Larry came up and we drove up there and we tried to drive up, but we couldn't get up.
Yeah.
It was...
I just want to go back a sec, Rach, because I want to highlight to people that you were the only Army female photographer in the unit at that time.
Hadn't got there yet.
Oh, you hadn't got there yet?
No.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, right. All right. So we'll go... we'll continue.
So you're right. So I was still at Rache, and obviously the Cyclone Larry hit. Mick Slater was a brigade commander. There was a lot of work going up there, it was just a mess. Mark Thames and I had a car, a four-wheel drive. We were going to drive up there. We drove up through the night, couldn't get in there, so we pulled into a hotel, stayed there, basically awake all night, and then drove back to Laverack, and then Black Hawk flew out the front like a taxi and jumped in her. It's amazing what you can do when you know things. Well, I didn't do it. They did it for us. So they did it for the brigade commander. So they were taking the brigade commander up, so we jumped in with him, and it was a different point of view to fly over Innisfail and just see the devastation.
Was it like Timor? Or was it just a total different?
Just totally different. Yeah.
Just
the devastation of bananas and crops and but once again, like I've always seen up until when I did a bit of work for Team Rubicon Australia or Disaster Relief Australia, what people in disaster areas can do just blows your mind, and their kindness and their preparedness to help you, to give you a drink or get you a sandwich, and everything you own's been washed away. So I was doing that. Then we got notice that I can't remember when we got back. That there was one position at the 1st Joint Public Affairs Unit for a photographer. So I got asked to come down and test for it. There was myself, one of the guys from one area, Hamish Patterson, Mick Davis, who's an arty guy, and Chris Morpham was an aviator. We went down and we were put through a test for a week. So I went to Canberra, never been to Canberra before. Didn't know my way around, knew nothing. We're all just staying in the lines there at RMC. And they gave us a photo task. They said, tell the story in a day of an instructor at RMC. And I go, but I don't know anything. They go and find one. So we went and found one. And I just picked this guy. I walked up to this sergeant and said, hi, my name's Rachel Ingram. I'm doing this. Can I follow you today and do, a life in the day of a instructor in photos? So we just started from there. At the end of the week, we tested all week on different aspects of photography, videography. Lots we didn't know. We got trained, like how they do things, why they do it. And then at the end, the OC sat there and we all had to walk in one by one. And I watched the first guy come out and I knew that he got it. I knew it. And I said, yeah. I said, righto, well, we'll just wait a turn. Went in and we all got a spot.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so Mick Davis, Hamish Patterson, myself were to go back and core transfer, become Army photographers, and Chris Moore got in as well, but he had an injury, so he had to just go back to his unit and get that pretty much sorted, because once you got there, it was, we had fallen into that period where we had people in East Timor, we had people in the Solomons, we had... and
starting to ramp up,
and we ramp up, so Iraq and all that. So we had Iraq going and Afghanistan, and I think the operators were slowly backing into. They were in Afghanistan. Yeah. So, but we weren't as.
So you sort of became like a tight little team, sort of, and the bond was good between you.
Yeah. So there's 8 of you.
Yeah. Wow.
There's 8 of us.
Geez, you would have been busy across the whole army.
And as I said, everything from cake cutting. Yeah. Those are great jobs.
Ribbon cutting.
Ribbon cutting. Somebody getting an award in Canberra. But Avalon Air Show, I've never actually done it. Yeah. I never got to it, but they get to go to Avalon Air Show. Everything. So wherever any of the 3 forces go, there will be somebody from a photographer or a videographer from First Joint Public Affairs usually goes with them.
Yeah, right.
So every operation.
Is it a mix, Rach, of the three corps as well?
Yeah. So Navy and Air Force have their own entity of photographers and videographers, and so do we. But we were so busy that we would have 2 or 3 Navy personnel and Air Force personnel posting with us, which is the best thing, because I had no idea what to do on a ship. I'd get on a ship and, I'd have, Damien Polanco from the Navy there, and I go, what's that whistle for? And he goes, you have to do this, you have to do that. This is the protocols. And so we had all that, and then vice versa when we would, be at Kaltana on exercise or outfield, and we could tell them, you've got to do it like this, or you should do it like this, we'll make you better with your weapons because you're pretty shit at it, because they just don't have enough hands-on. So it was joint service. So and they would come in for a posting and go out, and then some new people would come in. But they're a very small core within their own service as well.
Yep.
So there's a lot of turnaround. So we stayed in Canberra.
Yep.
Never. So they didn't. They had a unit photographers out there, but not from us. So you'd come in. We were the team.
Yeah.
And the odd guys out there would send us stuff, but it was all us and Navy and Air Force.
Yeah, right. And then, so you actually got to cover the 40th anniversary of the Battle of Long Tan. And how did you find talking to the men who fought so bravely on that day in 1966 in 2006?
Yeah, so that was quite an honour to do that. So I'd already had connections with 6RR.
Yep.
I had been in Timor on another operation and we had hooked up with doing some work for 6RR, so I knew the CO, the RSM and a lot of the boys. So that part I was comfortable with. Tim Page was there, so I sat with Tim Page and had a coffee, you know, like in Vietnam. Fantastic photographer who's no longer with us. Just a rule breaker and just did some amazing work. And he was there, and then all the olds and bolds were there. So you know, the platoon from Long Tan. And I didn't actually know it till I was there, that one of them lived in my hometown.
All right.
And he used to sing at the church, because I had to go to church because I was at a Catholic school. And when Mum said, I rang her up, I said, Noel Grimes is here.
Oh, yeah.
He was Delta Company, 6RR, Battle of Long Tan. She goes, oh, yeah, I knew he was in Vietnam. She says, and he used to sing. I said, that man's got the sweetest voice. I said, like, imagine him in a battle. I couldn't.
Yeah.
So we were really lucky. We covered it. It didn't really have to go anywhere, but back into archives and then back to 6RR. So that evening we got to stay and we put our cameras down and we got to sit in the boozer with the guys from Delta Company, 6RR, Long Tan and Current. So it was a really amazing experience, and I just sat there and listened.
Yep.
It was a real honour to grab a beer, sit in the boozer and just listen to them tell stories. And they weren't bad stories, a lot of them were funny stories, but just to listen to their history and their camaraderie and how they got on. So it was a real honour to meet them. And
just to think, Rach, like all those years ago when you first joined, when you were told you go on a catering call, like, and where your career had come to at that point, and still not finished. Like, there's still, you know, a lot more to go.
You just don't think about it in that respect.
No,
like,
you're pinching yourself, going, "Am I here? Am I actually here?"
And it's quite amazing to think. You know, as you said, we started with the tragedy of the Black Hawk accident in 5AB, and then, you know, I was outfield with 103, and I was the Digger Deck commander for the 3-4 cab, and one of their guys was killed in a vehicle rollover coming down from high range. And then, you know, one of our instructors was killed while I was at Kapooka, and I thought, is this just going to follow me?
Yeah.
Is someone going to die everywhere I go? And I pretty much think it has, but try not to think about that. It has, and it does shape you.
Yeah.
You know, and I had lost my own brother to suicide, so I've always... You know, some of the boys might say I was a bit hard, but I really have a compassionate side, and I had learned through my own experience of loss.
Yep.
I had a very, very, very good concept of just the shattering tragedy of losing somebody in your family, and now the green was my family.
Yep.
And when, no matter who they are or what corps they are, when they're lost, it's a loss on everybody. And because you've had personal experience, that resonates, and you have, and even, you know, like being a photographer, it's that empathy that you keep and you see, and there's all these little things that happen to you to get to so far to this place. To, you know, when you're taking photos of people, you're finding you can see their eyes. There's something different about the way everyone sees. Like one bloke said to me, every photo's been taken. Well, that's not possible.
Mm. Yeah.
Is it? I don't believe that.
No, I don't believe that either.
You said there's nothing you can take, every photo's been taken. I go, well, look at technology, the change in technology.
Yeah, well, from when you started to when you finished your career. And you deployed again to East Timor with 6RR and 2RR.
Yep.
And what was, you were obviously now, you were a photographer, you were being a photographer over there, and How much had the country changed from when you were first there in 1999?
Oh, yeah. I watched it change, like,
Yeah.
every time. I think, actually, in truth, I've been back 5 times.
Yeah, okay.
From 1999. So, obviously, infrastructure.
Yeah.
The IDP camps eventually were always still there. Then they left.
Yep.
They moved them on. The country started to develop. Started getting, I'm sure the money come from somewhere else in another land, but it did. And made the, footpaths and stuff. And I saw the place develop, but they still were in desperate need of help. And I worked with some great people over there. But, I was connected to them, so attached to do their photography, which was everything from hometowners to getting out with boys and having a look around and flying here and flying there. So it was an interesting aspect to see. So the benefit of being a photographer, I just get to go everywhere with everybody. So I'm with the Kiwis and you can be with this section. And then obviously I was there when President Horta was shot. It was quite remarkable. I remember waking up in my hab and the first thing I heard was low, fast Black Hawks. And I went, you know what? And I shared the room with one of the DFAT girls, Rebecca. We shared a hab and she wasn't there. Obviously, she was up out of bed. She's got a phone call and gone before me. And then I just remember putting my head down and went, fuck, something's up. Because Black Hawks don't, helicopters.
Like you said, from fifth, when you're at fifth,
I said, helicopters don't fly that fast and that low for no reason. And it just stuck in my head from that day. And I went straight out and Major Phil Pike was my OC. And I just looked up at the headquarter containers building on top of each other at Camp Phoenix and went, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
And there was like ants running everywhere.
Yeah, right.
And I remember just going up and seeing the boss and said, what's going on? He said, you've got to go to the heliport. He said, Horta's been shot. I went, what? And they said, yes, some rebels, have shot the president and shot the prime minister. And I said, let's go. So I'm getting my weapon. I'm like, let's go. Weapon, body armour, rounds, checking my weapon. Like I even got it out and I pulled through again in case I had to shoot somebody. I'm all ready. And he goes, no, you're going by yourself. I went, what? He said, you've got to drive a Land Rover to the helipad yourself.
Oh,
because
wow.
he's in Aspen being treated. I've got to, he's there to help the commander. I've got to help the commander. That's your job. He's the public affairs officer for the commander, for the command. I went, so there's been a Land Rover. I've got 6 magazines of 5.56 in between my legs, no seatbelt, and my Styland across my arm, driving as fast as I could to hell. Because Ranaudo and the boys were still on the streets. Yep. And I just kept thinking, okay, I've got to have a plan. What is my plan? I just had magazines in, then I put magazines in my pockets and I went, right, so if anything happens, drive through. Yep. Drive through for hard and fast. If you're on the roads, drive through hard and fast. That might have meant killing people. And how do I know what the rebels look like? I would just appear there. They had pipe guns and all that stuff, and we've had a few skirmishes with them, where they've thrown rocks and they've got pipe guns. We've seen all that stuff before. And I went, oh, well, that's all I know. Go fast, go hard, stay on the road. Now, if anything happens, I have to get out of the vehicle. I went, right. Obviously, training, if they're firing from the left side, go to the further side on the vehicle. Yep. I set up plans. If I had to run off the road, what if I was here? Because I'd been at the heliport so many times. Do I go off on a street and... what if they shoot from into the back of the Land Rover? Oh, should I put something there like protects me? And just all these plans. But I got in there without incident. And he was dying. They were taking blood directly out of soldiers. Wow. And the medics were and putting it through a machine, whatever they put it through. Yeah. And it was being fed into him. And I was pretty pissed because that night and the next day, the photos that went around the world, some stringer from the ABC claimed they were hers, they weren't, they were mine. Yeah, right. So Horta's laying there, they're trying to save his life, so I'm standing out, I'm videoing, I'm taking photos. So I was the only person on the ground because no foreign people were allowed inside the base at this stage. And they were working on him, seriously working on him. Yeah, right. Yeah, and if they had to stabilise him, they were going to fly him to Darwin, but we didn't know. I thought that was going to be the day he died. And then obviously here, that Guzman was being shot as well, but not as bad. and it was just craziness.
Yeah,
But it's like, thank goodness, if Aspen wasn't there on the helipad, he would have died. There is no doubt about it.
And you look back to when, like, sort of a kinetic deployment compared to when you were there in 1999.
Yeah.
Totally different.
You thought it was all gone.
Yeah.
And you know, there's me running out on the tarmac, like trying to take photos, trying to take video. What should I do? Let's take both. Oh my God, this is a big moment.
Yep.
You know, but obviously I'm still in green, so I could just move around anywhere I wanted to.
Yeah.
And there's so much that comes with that. Like, it's not just taking the photos. You go back, and they've all got to be approved and checked, and you got to do them right.
That'd be a long process in itself.
That's the frustrating part.
Yeah.
Because there can be a great photo, but someone's... And they did go up on the website. They went back to Australia and they go through Parliament like most things, so someone looks at them there. And they've said, we just don't think, Australians need to see that. And then, like, my footage is all over the news, and then it's I've got the papers. Mum kept the papers, and I've got the front page of the paper, but with somebody else's name under it. And I said, I met her. She came into the mess about 3 days later, and I said, you probably should get me a ginger beer at the minimum. and I said to her, she said, someone had to put their name on it, so I did it. And I went, really?
Well, if you can live with that, I mean, I know you.
What do you do? You can't do anything about it.
No, but it sucks, Rach, because it's your work. It's and you're not getting the credit for the work, but But
I just got over it pretty quickly. Like, at the end of the day, I know they're mine, and if it's somebody else, they can't explain the day or something like that to us. It's more about experience. It was an amazing experience. I think 3 days later, I was up at the East Timor, Timorese or Timor-Leste Parliament House, and like 3 of the rebels were... So that night... So obviously this is all going on, so Special Forces are sent in on a plane.
Yep.
Brent Terror comes in with them. He's a RAF sergeant that worked with us. They've put him on to come in with them. So I'd had a relationship with them.
Yep.
I'm doing some work with them, so they walked past me, so I turned around and took photos of them from the back. Obviously, I understood protected identity. And we went straight up to Gleno because they were doing their own op up there, and 2RR were preparing to go down and overlook the house where the rebels was.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and that was all going to end quite messy. It didn't.
Yeah.
But it was about 3 days after that, I was up at Parliament House, and I was like sitting outside because the boss was in talking to somebody. I was sitting there with my weapon and my camera gear, and these fellas just walked past me and I went, is that some of the rebels? Like, just cruising around Parliament House. I went, whatever. How does this work? I don't know.
So how long was that deployment for? Was that
They were 3 to 6 months.
Yeah, okay.
All of them, yeah.
So pretty full on, pretty full kinetic. And in that same year, you also deployed to the Solis as well. And that was same again. You were there to just take
photos of the guys that were there on the ground doing the job with the AFP. So I think 90% of them were reservists.
Yep.
I thought it was going to be quite boring. It wasn't boring, but I thought it would be quite bland.
Slow tempo, sort of,
They were chocos. Oh, really, that choco regular. I mean, the blokes were fantastic.
Yeah, right.
Very good at what they did. I was really impressed. They took their reserve time very seriously. The patrol, they had a little patrol used to go out every day, used to go out with them. They were really good. They had really good hearts and minds, but they were really good at watching for what's going on. Yep. Nothing did happen, but it was an amazing experience, and it was I learned a lot. I went out to a little island called Bina, and it's got 140 people that live on it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and if they have kids, they just start pressing coral into it and making it a bit bigger. But once again, poor people with the best life. Like, they're just jumping off the side of this island into this. It was like an aquarium. A beautiful place, and a lot of hearts and minds stuff we did there. There was no action or anything like that. There was a bit of stuff happening up the river bed with a few people, but nothing to worry about. But it was just an interesting experience.
Well, in that same year, on the 29th of November 2006, as you said, things seem to follow, like especially helicopter accidents you seem to be around them. So a Black Hawk helicopter A25 221 crashed during a training flight. The helicopter was attempting to land on HMAS Canimbla, and it was located in international waters off Fiji. On board the helicopter were 10 Army personnel, four air crew and 6 soldiers. Of those on board, 8 survived and 2 were fatally injured. You were actually tasked to cover the funeral of Trooper Joshua Porter, SASR. How hard was that for you? Because obviously covering a funeral, something you hadn't done before.
No, I hadn't done it. None of us had really done it. This was unfortunately the start of learning, and this was a whole learning process, which I hate to say we became too good at. And I didn't even know how to take it. Like, you know, the Minister of Defence has put a thing out. You know, he's a defence member. He's going to be farewelled. This is what we require. You need to take, obviously, footage for archival, for the unit, for his family, because the family know about it. So a lot of things. I've been at a lot of military funerals. It's not usually that unit that you get the bad looks from. It's probably a civilian guest that doesn't understand why people are videoing it and taking photos. They don't understand that this has gone to the family, and the family have requested us to be there, to take it, to note it. I've stood there in a church and I've had really, really horrible looks. And as discreet as you are, there is someone that'll catch your eye and they will just cut you in half. Like, what the fuck are you doing taking photos at this funeral? Even
not knowing that you're tasked to do that.
Yeah. If we didn't volunteer, this is not how I want to spend my day.
Yeah, watching.
You know,
yeah.
And it was really hard. The guys from the regiment were really good. The RSM was there. We had dinner with them. We went through and you do a practice. You know, they have a bearer party and all that, how it's going to be, how the family want it, what's going to be. So you're doing practice. So we actually get there early to his hometown. We did the ramp ceremony, which was very basic at the start. They just brought him home and they brought him in. Became a bit more elaborate as we got better at it, and the RAF decided to make a hangar and how it was all going to be done, which they did a great job. So we go with RSM in the unit, and people were involved in doing the funeral, and you would practice, and you'd do a test practice and how they're going to do things and how you could move around. So how you could get from A to B. And it is like a duck swimming. So really calm on the top, really quiet, really dignified. And you could come out of the church at one point and run all the way around the church, around the convent, around the back to get to the front door. And then you've got to compose yourself and just walk back in and take that other shot. And like I've been up in birds' nests, up in top of churches. And I'm not very good. I can't watch people cry at the airport. And any of my true friends will attest to, if I see people crying at the airport, I will cry, and I can't say goodbye to people. So I have to say, see you, mate, like I'll just go. Or I'll sneak out and do that AJ fadeaway. Really bad at saying it, and my friends will attest to it. I've got to look through my camera and set up a photo and not look, because Australian flags and caskets break my heart. Right. I can hear, you know, just because I'm looking, it doesn't mean I can't hear. I can hear how people speak of them. They spoke of Josh, his friends talk about him, his parents talk about him, you know, and then it's over, and then you've got to listen to it again and again and again and again and again. So what people don't realise is, so you have to cut it and edit it all. Every photo, it's got to be cleared, everyone's got to be written in the metadata, every piece of footage, so they're playing the last post and you've got to listen to it and watch it and got to stop, I'll go back 2 seconds, stop, go. So you can just watch the same funeral again and again and again and again. Probably could watch it 20, 40 times within a 24-hour period before you cut it.
And that has an effect on you.
It's terrible. And you're so hopeless.
Yeah. And
you think people suffering and you can't do anything to help them.
And And you know, it would have been worse, Rach, if you knew
Yeah.
him, right? You know, like,
Yeah.
and that's
But there's never, I don't think I ever, as soon as you go to something, you know somebody.
yeah,
And that's the army. You know, you'd bump into someone that you knew or that
Yep.
knew them or worked with them. So, yeah, that was the start of it.
Yeah, not knowing what you not having that crystal ball to
No.
see what had come next,
Yeah.
and you know that was, as you say, that was the start of it. But it's not all sad, and you actually got to. You got this, and it could probably come out of the blue for you. This assignment was to cover both the still and vision of the 50th anniversary of the SASR regiment in Perth, and having full coverage to
Full access?
Yeah, full access.
Yeah.
And what was that like for you?
Well, I thought it was another G up. So the OPSO called me in and said, you know, you got anything going on next week? Oh, because we'd all have taskings.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
if we
yeah.
weren't prepping, if we weren't overseas or on a mission or an operation, we would be prepping to go,
Yep.
or we would be back having leave and then coming back. And I was in that between period where, you know, I could do local stuff, or if they needed someone, if something happened in town, they'd find me up there, rah. And the OPSO called me in and he said, oh, what do you got on? And I said, oh, I haven't got any real task, I'm just doing this and this. And he goes, oh, there's this job coming up. And I looked down and it had, you know, anniversary Special Air Service Regiment Perth. And I went, yeah, righto. What's going on here?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Right, like, I'm the only girl here. There's a whole bunch of boys that I work with that have come from infantry and come from, you know, arms corps backgrounds. Why the fuck is this job still sitting here?
Mm.
You know? And a lot of them know people over there as well.
Yep.
And he said, oh, they've never picked it up yet. He said, do you want it? I said, yeah, I'll take it. So, and he gave me a number and he said, ring it. And I happened to ring it. And all of a sudden, the XO was Davin Peterson, who was my troop commander when I was a SIG.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so in radio troop, he was my troop commander and he was now over there. And yeah, he said, I said, I'm your photographer for the whole show. I'm coming over. He said, come over.
Yeah, right.
And they was going to organise, and like he knew me then, so
Yeah.
he knew who I was. He actually had seen me every day, had seen me outfield. He knew
Yeah.
me as a person, as a soldier, how I worked. He said, yep, we'll organise a pass for you. Righty, we'll talk to you when you get here. And I said, no worries. He said, when do you want to fly? He said, let me know and we'll have your flights organised whenever you want to come over.
Yeah,
So I got over to Perth, which is quite interesting. So I was nervous
Well, as you would be. Like,
because if this went wrong, you fuck this up. You're not going to hear the end of it. You know, if you're going to be the photographer, the chick photographer that gets the job at Perth and fucks it up and has to be replaced.
yeah.
Or isn't to the standard, or get, you know, whatever. Like I was worried. So I packed all my gear and checked it. I get to Perth, I get to the gate at Campbell Barracks, there's a young fella on there, and he goes, oh, I can't find your pass, so I can't let you in. And I went, well, what do you want me to do? And he said, oh, I'll try and ring these. So he's trying to ring and wait. And he goes, look, it's dark, it's 8 o'clock. And he goes, look, I just can't get you in, let you in without that pass. I went, righto. He said, oh, but there's a hotel up here, I can ring them up, I'll put you up in there. So they rang up the Rendezvous, which was up the road, and I went up there and stayed there. I thought, well, I'll just, you know, I went and had some tea in the restaurant, got myself a scotch, went upstairs and thought, I'll check my camera gear. Well, ripped it all out, got it all out of the bags, because we all had tapes and cards and stuff there, and I got tripods and computers and battery chargers. Not a fucking battery, not one. So I had no camera batteries, I had no video camera batteries, and I just sat back. And I went, they're here. Pulled all my clothes out of the bag. I didn't have many clothes, like I had uniforms and some civvies. No, couldn't find them. No battery. Then I'm thinking, oh my God, do I ring back to work and say, I have no camera batteries? Like, I can't do anything without a camera battery.
Yeah.
Wonder if there's anyone in multimedia at SASR that have camera batteries that I can get hold of that I don't have to tell my work about. Wonder if I have time to go and buy some. So I'm Googling, like, Nikon shops in Perth, thinking, who do I know in Perth?
Yeah.
Oh, Damien Palenko, he's in the Navy. I think he's in Perth. Where the fuck's the Navy base in Perth? So I'm Googling. And I went, you know, this is just ridiculous. Went straight downstairs, bought myself a Scotch and Coke, walked back upstairs. Had about 12 cigarettes out the front of the hotel. I went, fucked. I'm going to have to ring somebody. I went, right, I'll pack it up. And I'll ring them in the morning. Can't go anywhere now. It's like 10 to 12.
Yeah.
So I started packing it up and took, packing it up, being really tidy. Because I thought I'd get flown home, for sure, when I rang in the morning.
Yeah.
And then, do I ring the regiment? I could say, I fucked up, I won't be here, I've got to wait for someone else to come over. And then I have to tell my own boss, and they'll all laugh at me, and I was just really worried.
Yeah.
And I'm packing all my stuff up really tidy, and then I felt this big bulge in my tripod bag, and I'd put all the batteries in the bottom of my tripod bag to save weight.
Yeah, right.
And to make more room. And I went, oh my God, I went over to the bar shop, went over to the bottle shop and bought myself a can of Scotch Coke, came back and never told anyone.
Yeah.
Never told them. Rocked up at the barracks front gate the next day, came in, they were just brilliant. Gave me one of the rooms, to stay in a multimedia, met all the guys, found me a corner to set up with. The RSM, they just couldn't fault them. The boys were really good. It was a great experience,
Yeah.
Once again, the current operators were there, but it was the olds and bolds that were there with their wives and stuff.
Yeah.
And they were amazing to me. And they had demo displays, which were amazing, like equipment demo displays and all this kind of stuff. And it was really good. So just every day I'd take photos of whatever the event was. They had fashion parades and equipment demos and a whole big thing. And, I met some of the operators' wives, and they were really lovely, and they looked after me, and I couldn't complain. I just lived on base for a week and a half and got to take photos of, obviously there was identity and protected identity photos. I did both. So every time I saw something, I tried to do both. So I'd take the photo I seen, because that's your craft. Yeah. And then I'd go, now I'll just take it from this angle so you can't see. Because it might be an old operator standing with a new operator, and I didn't, I'd always check with them, and some people just don't want their photo taken. Yeah. But obviously the guys that were currently serving, you had to protect their identity. So you just found different angles. I didn't like pixelating.
Yep.
So I would always try and find an angle where I could you can see him.
just the back half or something. Yeah. So the skill comes into
so it was just an amazing experience being there. They were really good to me. It was a great experience, and another good funny, a different world.
Yeah.
When watching their equipment blew my mind, but I was really, really, really well looked after.
And you you were starting to you're starting to really get your craft, and and getting involved. Who wouldn't take that assignment? Really?
I still don't know how I got that.
But just you were there at the right time, Rach. It's just, and then you come back from that, and then that unbelievable experience, and then you're at and this is where it gets, as we said, where the
ugly.
This is where it gets ugly, and you were at the ramp services and funerals of Trooper David Pearce. Sergeant Matthew Locke, MG, Corporal Matthew Hopkins, Private Grant Kirby, and Private Thomas Dale, Lance Corporal Jared McKinney, and Sergeant Todd Matthew Langley from
Todd Langley from
Two Commando. Rach, that's a lot of grief and a lot of hard.
I think we lost 42, and I covered, in a team, 39 of them, 38 of them. So the only ones I didn't cover were Ben Ranaudo's, obviously, because I was in country when he was killed. And a couple of the other guys that was away, the commandos that were killed in the helicopter accident. I was actually on subject one for sergeant when that happened. So I was back, and so it just, they're fucking shit.
Yeah.
They are the shittiest job you could. I know there's some shit jobs out there, but they're shit. They are heartbreaking, and every time you just. The thing is, we got so good at it, and that's out of respect for the people the RSMs that run the honour guards, but just the ramp ceremonies. The minute you heard, you'd just be at home, you just hear, and you know how the patter worked. We knew how it worked.
Yeah.
They, obviously we know, they lock down wherever it's happened, wherever they've been lost from. Their families are informed, right? Obviously the Prime Minister and Department of Defence are informed. We already see that. By the time they've already gathered the media, the press, to let them know they've stepped onto a podium inside of Russell offices to announce that there has been someone killed, and an Australian killed. And then we knew from the minute you walk into work, you're in work, that night or the next morning, you know. You have to be prepped for a ramp ceremony. So while there are people watching on 6 o'clock news, I'm pulling pollies. I'm getting 4 sets of short sleeve pollies because I know where I'm going, and you've got to go, and you pull it, and then you just understand that you've got to go to, and do a ramp ceremony, and they are the worst. They are worse than the funerals because, like anyone that's suffered losing a family member, you're told, but you could be some distance from them. So they're obviously in Afghanistan, and your family are home here in Australia. So they're told, their unit and their padres and their officers gather, and their friends are gathered around the people that have lost their family member. Whilst that's happening, you'll get notice, or we know what aircraft they're coming in. They go through wherever they go through to get cleared, and they come and fly into Australia. And you will be there on that tarmac, and you will see that aircraft fly in. And you have behind you, or on the tarmac with you, the direct family of that person, their children, their parents, their unit, whoever he is, best friends that are there, hierarchy, ministers, politicians, Chief of Defence Force, RSMA, all of those. It's when that aircraft lands at the other end, it will be checked by, Aquas or whoever, and then it rolls up, and it will turn and it will come towards you. And when that ramp goes down, this is really hard.
Take your time, take your time.
When the ramp goes down, you know what's going to happen. Because the family's been told they've been killed, and you know how hard that is to comprehend in normal life, that you've lost someone. Even though they know it, I think when those boys pick up that casket and they walk it down that ramp, that is the moment. It is not a myth, it's not a lie, it's fact. And to this day, I can tell you every funeral, and I can hear the noises. It's like a noise. It's like, I remember when they brought Matlock home, and I'd met him when I was at the anniversary, and his partner, his wife, and the noise that came out of her body, I nearly dropped to my knees. So I walk out on the I learned to walk out on the tarmac as close to the engines as I could. And this is selfish. I used to walk out there because obviously I have to get a picture of that photo of the casket being removed from the aircraft with the Piper out the front. And I used to get closer and walk further out, and I used to always walk towards the engine because it breaks your heart. Like, I just remember you get this gasping, or it's like their heart comes out their mouth, and that first initial gasp that this is real. And I heard it again and again and again and again. And I never, ever, ever, and I hated them. And they just kept coming. And you feel useless. And, you do a ramp ceremony, then you've got to do the ramp ceremony, then you've got to go and do a memorial, you might do a memorial, then you've got to go and do a funeral, then there might be something at the unit for it. So this could all happen. You could be filming and taking photos of the same people, the same thing in different places for a week. And then you have to edit all that, because then there's a group in Canberra that take all that footage and they will make a CD which will go back, say, to the guys in Afghanistan. So because they can't participate, at least they can watch it. It goes into archives, it goes into history, it goes into units history. Like, there's all this stuff that's done with it. It'll be cut and edited, and there'll be so much given to the news, like the news outlets, so they can play it. But you just watch it again and again. And there is nothing about watching people suffer that's good.
No.
They're green. they're your people. Like some of them I don't know. Some of them like the Potes, Bree Till, all and their partners and their mums and dad, Todd Langley's family. Never knew them. Never knew Todd. Never knew his family. And met his family. And obviously they've lost, their dad. His dad as well now has passed. So yeah, just met these people on their worst day of their lives. I think it's an honour to do it though. There was a stage where, 1, 2. Triples were the hardest, 3 men killed. How do you work out to take a photo to make that person's loved one the forefront of that photo? Or do you just take 3 coffins in a row? But they're all separate people.
Yeah.
They're all got different friends and different parents. So there was, I always struggled with that. How do I take 3 different photos and put their photo and their casket in the forefront so their mum and dad can see it, and you struggle with that. And that's not art. There's nothing arty about it. It's just doing the fucking right thing. And being respectful, moving as quietly as possible. How do I do this? You listen to RSM, how are you going to do it, sir? And you'll be at practice with them for this day, and you go, sir, I'm just going to come around here, but when your guys come forward, I'm going to move to here. Is that right? He goes, yep, that's all right with me. So it's all orchestrated army. Yep. But on the day, it is heartbreaking, and funerals. I never forget Poppy Pierce's kids in the front of that church. It just broke my heart. But, and there's prime ministers and all these people at them, but they're not the people that matter. These people, their mates are there, their units there. You've been there, you can't do anything to help them. There's nothing you can do. All you can do is do your job. And
do it like you did with pride and dignity and respect.
Yeah, they did try and take it off us. There was a concern. Believe it or not, there was concern for our mental health. And then you get back to Canberra when you finish it, and then you've got to edit it all again. So then it's got to be edited, put into archives, and that. Yeah,
hard period.
You have to switch off from it, and I'm not very good at that. Every time I watch, I still can't watch them. I still can't go through photos at home. Some days, I just can't get out of the house if I look back at them, and I just go, oh fuck. Yeah. And what I did try to do, I made a conscious effort for myself that every casket was going to be different. There had to be a different angle on it. So whether it was a Special Forces one, so a Sandy beret or a green beret, that the way I shot it, if anyone sees it, they'll know it's theirs. So they'll go, they'll know who's in it. They'll know it's their person.
Oh, right.
So if you have 4 Special Forces and they've got a Sandy beret on top of an Australian flag draped casket,
yep.
I wanted them to know that Craig Lineker was in it.
Yeah, right.
I wanted them to know that that's a Matlock photo, that's their photo. Because otherwise, what's the fucking point? Because otherwise, you get one standard photo of an Australian flag on a coffin, and you can just play that and use that one picture.
And people see it and go, who?
They don't. They don't. They go, oh, that must be. They don't know. So, do you not have a right to do the right thing by them? Not a right. That's wrong. They're the wrong words. An obligation. If that is their final day, if that's going to be their final resting place, they've been brought home to Australia, if I have to take these photos, and that's my job, it's my job to recognise their service. And I think it might be Matlock's. And I saw a rose in the garden in Perth, and I shot it through the rose. So the rose actually was really sharp, but the casket and the Sandy berets are not.
Yeah,
but
right.
You can see who it is.
Yeah,
so
right.
you can see what the unit is.
Yep.
So, and even with the guys that weren't Special Forces, when, with Kirby and all those guys, I wanted them, with Robbie Pote and that. I didn't do Robbie's, but when we did the 3s, I wanted to make an angle at least So if their parents or their brothers and sisters or their wives or whoever sees that photo, they go, oh, that's their photo.
Yeah.
You know, I know that sounds a bit macabre.
No.
But you had to make it different.
I think what it shows, Rach, is that you put the human factor of the care factor in, and you did something that it's a bit of forward thinking, because people wouldn't have thought that. Like, they just would have, like, other photographers might have just gone, yep, ching 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 ching, and you've actually taken that care factor that you've made the ultimate sacrifice with your life, and this is how you're going to be remembered. People will remember you, and I think that's a really forward.
It's just not stock standard.
No,
it's easy to go, oh, that's an Australian in a casket with an Australian flag, must be an Australian. Well, I want them. They're all different people.
That's right.
They've all sacrificed their lives, and that if there's a photo, it should be not stock standard.
That's right. And you're giving them the dignity of, like we were talking about.
And I think that's when they made suggestions that they might get a civilian company to do it, and I just said no. I said, don't get me wrong, I hate them. I hate doing them, but I always go to them, and I do them, and I volunteer to do them, because no one knows Army like Army. And I don't take anything away from the abilities of a civilian camera team to do it, but they're just not Army.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, it has to be us. We have to do this.
And I don't think, to be honest, and like you said, you don't take anything away from the civilian companies to do it, but I don't think they would have handled it with the same respect.
And I think it's just, we all know what RSMs are like, SSMs. We're on a RAF base, you've got to respect them, and they worked really hard because it happens to them. They've got their people there. Yeah. You kind of always know somebody.
Yeah.
Especially on the funeral day, there's like so many people, and you'll bump into someone that you've met, and it's a connection. So a lot of these units, you might know the individual, but you've worked with the units, or you've met the RSM before, or you know the brigade commander, or or these people you've met from all your travels around Australia and all the units. That makes them more comfortable.
Yeah.
Or
Absolutely.
they've seen you do it before, and you look at someone, like the CDF at the time. I think it was Angus Houston.
Yep.
He saw us every week, like every second week we were doing this, every month we were doing this.
Yep.
So he knew he didn't have to worry about us. We knew we didn't have to worry about him.
Yep.
He stood where he never had to talk to us. Like, I'll be standing here, I don't want you to take photos. Never had to do that.
Yeah.
Because we knew. We talked to the RSM of the unit, and they would say, this is what we're doing, this is how we're going to do it. And we go, yes, sir, that's how we're going to do it. He goes, okay, we'll do a practice tomorrow. Where do you think you guys will be? And we just worked together to do the best we could on the worst day for everybody.
Yeah, and like you said, unfortunately, when you covered Josh Porter's, if you had seen what was coming, you maybe would have gone, oh, hang on, maybe not. But
it was a rarity. It was like, oh my God, we're going to take photos at a fallen soldier's funeral. That's weird
for us.
Would I let people take photos at my brother's funeral? Like, no fucking way.
Yeah.
Like, that's macabre.
Yeah, and I wanted to get you on, Rach, and tell your story, and like when I'm reading through all of this, and I remember as a civilian, like they just kept coming. Like, you watch it on the news, and I never thought that that you were the one that had to, like, and the mental toll that takes on you. Yeah. Like, and like for a time we're just like, oh, not another one. Like, and that was. They just kept coming, and it was just,
Well, and I remember it clearly, like after I did that anniversary task over in Perth, and I'd gone home, and next cab off the rank was Sergeant Matthew Locke. I went, nah, that can't be right.
Yeah, that can't.
Like I questioned the news, and I went, that can't be right. Like,
I just saw him.
I've got photos of him at home.
Yeah.
Like, I've got photos of him sitting around in jeans and a t-shirt.
Yeah.
With the odds and bolts.
Yeah.
I went, wow. Like, the photo's right there. I was sitting with him. Like, they went and got me a drink.
Yeah.
And they told me to get out of my uniform and put my civvies on and sit around and have a beer with them. And I was having a beer with him, and he was just there, and I just took some photos, and I put the camera down, and I just couldn't believe it. And then, they're ringing me up and they say, we've got your pass here, you're coming back. So I went over there and I did the ramp ceremony.
And it's like you said at the start of the podcast, if the best of the best if it can happen to them, it can happen to anyone. And you were there. Like, you were there with Matt not long before he
Deployed. Back, yeah.
And then, yes, and like you say, life's short. Life is, and so precious. And that, like...
And I think he's made an impact too because I had seen him in the flesh, so I knew him.
Yeah.
So the other guys I didn't know.
Yeah.
I hadn't worked with them, but, that doesn't diminish their service.
No.
But within weeks or a month, I had left that task and they were deploying. And, I just went, it was heartbreaking.
Oh, absolutely.
It was heartbreaking for his family. It was heartbreaking for his unit.
Yeah.
They just seemed to not stop.
Yeah, and for a few years they just kept coming, but we'll go to, so you go, like, you did an amazing job, and I want to highlight that for you. You did an amazing job, Rach, but you were deployed to Iraq, Baghdad, on
SecDep 14, 2009.
Yeah, and this included a very special Anzac Day at Northgate's.
I don't know if special, fucking painful.
Oh, painful.
Painful day.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that trip. Let's talk about.
So we went over to cover team, Peter Martinelli, Hamish Patterson and myself. We would go out on, so our commander, he's a captain. He doesn't come out with us. Yep. But sometimes when space, he'll either go, it's a video job or it's a stills job. So one of us would go. We could both do each. But mainly I was doing stills. Pato was doing video, and whatever the det was doing on that task outside in the red zone, depending on who went and how many went. If we couldn't put the team in, we'd send one. So sometimes I'd go out, or sometimes Pato and I'd go out. And it came around to Anzac Day, and Anzac Day we thought was going to be held there at the sector because it was a secure location. Of course, we were wrong. I do believe there was some people from outside the military that made a decision that Northgate Cemetery would be a wonderful place to hold Anzac Day. Yes, it is, because there's a lot of Australians buried there.
Yeah, I'll mention the numbers, Race, and then I'll let you... So,
go.
At present, there is 4,160 Commonwealth casualties of the First World War commemorated by name in the cemetery, many of them on special memorials, unidentified burials from this period number 2,729. Most of the 296 Commonwealth servicemen of the Second World War buried in the cemetery died of illness or by accident. And now I'll let Rach, obviously you talked about that, and it was a painful day, unfortunately, for you.
Well, so obviously we went around, we had obviously all the guys from SecDet, we had MRAP support, so we had US military support, obviously, and then I think we worked all night. We went to bed the night before Anzac Day because we had to be up at like 1 a.m. and we formed up. And I ended up in this MRAP. I remember looking at Peter Martinelli across from me at the window, and there was a bullet hole in the window. Like, there was a bullet hole in the window. I went, that's not good. And then so we're in the convoy to go and pick people up and go out to Northgate Cemetery, which is right in the middle of the red zone. And I just... when you see a bit of street lights in Baghdad and you come around this corner, and I've worked out that our vehicle, our MRAP, is like second back from centre. And I went, this is a fucking bad place to be. That's a bad place to be. I said, so already our bulletproof glass is compromised because there's a bullet hole through it. We're 2 back from centre in the convoy, which is likely to be a very good area where they'd strike the middle of the convoy to cause mass damage. Then it was just going to get worse. And I just had a really bad feeling about it. So we picked up a couple of civilians. One of them happened to be a very, very large man. that couldn't really fit down the aisles of the MRAP to sit in the seat. And I just looked at my boss and I said to him, "Sir, we got to get the fuck out of this seat, because if something goes wrong, we ain't getting past this fucker in front of us." So we made up like they were mobiling around, so we had to go out the turret at the top, crawl across the top of the vehicle, go down. We got in the front. We found a seat at the front. Yeah. I said, because if this goes to shit and that man's in front of me, we're not getting out of here. And it just became a very long day. It was amazing to be there, the dawn service. Once it was over, all the dignitaries left and just left the soldiers there. Became a very dangerous place to be. But we had to wait for the vehicles to come back for us. So the vehicles came back and took enough guys. They had no seats left. So there was myself and 3 under 21 infantry men left in Northgate Cemetery. Northgate Cemetery looks like Suncorp Stadium. Flat, headstones, buildings all around it. And all of a sudden this big American colonel comes up to me and he says, "Well, have a happy Anzac Day, we're out of here." So he pulled all the security, they're gone.
Oh, shit.
And then I'm looking, I'm going, far out, how long are we here for? So I grabbed the lads and in the middle of Northgate Cemetery there's an arch, square, probably about 2.5 metres tall, probably about 6 metres wide. It's a cement arch that does nothing in the middle of the cemetery. In we go. So I put one of the boys on each corner inside. It's just a big arch. And so you've only got little left and rights on there. And I said, "How much ammunition have you got?" One of them said to me, he said, "Oh, I'm really scared." I said, "Well, it's not time to be scared. We just got to sit here and wait." And then I thought to myself, I'm a corporal. It doesn't matter if I'm a photographer. It doesn't matter if I'm a girl. These are diggers, and I'm a corporal. This shit's just about to get real. And people started coming out of the homes. There's a lot of men walking around outside the cemetery, and I went, "Oh, not today.
Yeah.
You know, fucking not today. Please don't let it end here where, and then I was worried that if shit happens, I hope it's me, not them." So we were there for the longest 2 hour and 40 minutes. We sat there, the 4 of us by ourselves. We had our weapons at instant. We took a corner each and we just looked out and prayed to God that we had no communications, had nothing on Anzac Day, and we're just sitting there. And eventually a vehicle came back. And it was like an MP vehicle, so it wasn't even an armoured vehicle. We fucking were in it.
Yeah.
So we got back to the Australian Embassy in Baghdad, and I was pissed already. I just had no time. And eventually we ended up back at the SecDet, and we're told, everyone that was off duty was told to go and have a sleep and get back up and had our kind of own little Anzac Day. And I remember Mark Kelly, was it Mick Kelly? Mick Kelly was Joint Task Force 633, turned up, General Kelly, and I just looked at him and I said, "What the fuck went on today? What the fuck was I doing out there by myself, sir?" And he just looked at him and goes, "What's going on, Rach?" Because he used to be the commander of the brigade, so it had a lot to do with him. I said, "Those diplomats just took all our vehicles and we were just fucking left out there. What if one of those young fellas had been killed?" And he just kind of looked at me and I just ranted for about 20 minutes. And he said, "Do you want a beer?" I said, "Yeah."
Which I think you've got every right to, Rach, because that shouldn't have happened. And with no communication, to leave 4 of you there, that's just...
They're brand new soldiers. First deployment. Haven't done any field since I was Singo. And then all of a sudden you realise that you're responsible because you've got 2 stripes on your arm. It doesn't matter who you are, what you are. If shit happens here, we are rooted.
Yeah.
We are sitting ducks. We're standing in the middle of a football field. And I was just watching, today's the day. But it wasn't our day. They were good lads. Don't remember their names. but they held their nerve and we got out of there. But it was definitely a day it's definitely an experience I just don't ever want to be in again.
Yeah.
That was shit. It was shit. It was just shit management, and I'm prepared to say it. I have no good memories of Northgate Cemetery whatsoever.
Well, now I can say, I take that statement back, Rach.
I did walk around and look at the headstones before that happened, though, and it was quite lovely to.
On such a sacred day,
back.
that shouldn't have happened.
It was scary. That was a bit scary.
Yeah.
Scary being very responsible.
I can
for
see.
3 young lives.
I can see, and
we didn't have the firepower, mate, to do anything. We had nothing. We had our stires.
Sitting ducks.
Yeah, we were sitting ducks. We probably 4 rounds of ammo each. I counted we had. Less than. We probably had about 25 in each magazine. Not 430.
Jesus. Yeah, right.
There was nowhere to run. We would have been surrounded, and that's it didn't happen.
But you got to.
But your experiences tell you
it could have happened.
That I'm sitting there going, we're in the middle of this football field with this. We are sitting ducks here, and if somebody wanted to get us, they could have taken us out there. Yeah. Someone was wrong person has to walk past and know that we're still. That's why we stayed in there, because 1, to give ourselves cover, and 2, not to draw attention that we're still there. So hopefully no one knows that we're there.
Yeah.
Until someone come back and pick us up, because you don't want to walk around like a cockatoo with a fucking F-88 style with 3 rounds with 3 magazines.
Yeah,
you're not going to get far.
And it's
Baghdad.
The what if too. Yeah. Like if
and you shouldn't do that because it plays with your head. But I knew it right there and then. There was only 4 of us there, and it was a very long 2 hours.
Yeah, Jesus. Yeah,
very long 2 hours.
And then
that could fuck your career.
Oh yeah. And that was that a 6-month deployment, that one as well?
Nah. That was in and out.
Okay.
We weren't in there very long, so we went in and covered everything. So we covered, went into like Kuwait, and then we went through Saddam's palace and all the people that were working around that area, and then we ended up doing the sectet.
Yep.
We stayed with them for a while with their work, and then we flew to Kandahar. We covered the hospitals there, which actually was another good thing, because I knew I was coming out of there and going into Afghanistan with MRTF 2.
Yep. But
I got to spend a couple of days with the medical staff and how it all works in the Role 3, is it? Role 1, Role 3. And I went, so I walked out of there and I went, well, at least if something happens to me, and I knew this when I went back into Afghanistan, if something happens to me, I went, fuck, they're like, the doctor there was, a head doctor was actually a Rache.
Yep.
He was unbelievable. Unbelievable. They had a New Zealand maxillofacial fella.
Yep.
Just the most professional people I've ever met, and I always felt comfort even if anything went wrong.
You were in good hands.
And I watched, obviously they weren't Australians, but I watched people come in there and I watched them go to work, and they were just unbelievable, unbelievable to watch. And also I was there, obviously, with my relationship with 5th Aviation Regiment. I hooked up with them. And with the rotor wing group with the Chinooks, and I just flew all over Afghanistan. So I went up to the Bull, to some of the US cops, and mate, don't they do it hard? Jesus Christ.
So you then, as you say, you now deploy to Afghanistan, and you were with MTF too. So
I went home from Kandahar back to Australia, and then I turned around and went back to Kuwait, and then flew into Tarin Kowt with MRTF 2, so the 1st Battalion Royal Australian Regiment Alpha Company, and then Bravo Company came in, and attachments. Engineers.
And that and you were outside the wire a lot on that deployment, and as you mentioned.
So I was outside the wire, so I landed in country, I was outside the wire in 15 hours.
Oh, right.
Went out on patrol in 15 hours. So Ricky had to stay. Poor Ricky had to stay. Sure, his wife was really pissed with me. So because they were taking me straight out, we hardly did a handover.
Yep.
So Ricky stayed to cover till I came back in from the nursery patrol, and then Ricky got to go home.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And then you mentioned that you were there the day that Paul Warren, so he's been on the podcast.
Yep.
He lost his leg, and Benny Ranaudo.
Yeah.
That would have been a tough day, Rach. That would have been a very tough day.
I tell you what, if they need to give medals out for bravery, it should have been that day for some of those boys. Not one. I remember their faces. I remember them just standing there, and I actually have photos of him, and I don't know if it's a photographer's eye or something, but, you know, his mates in his section, they aged, I reckon, in a month from when I first met them. So very early on the tour, when we got in there in June, like, I didn't do workups with him. They went to Germany. I was in Iraq. A sad day. Just a terrible day for everybody. Everybody back in at camp. You know, and they just kept going. You know, it happened at 6:40 in the morning. Patrol continued till 5 o'clock that evening. I think it's the only time I've ever seen the Bushmasters come down off the dash to pick everyone up. We all obviously couldn't travel at night, so we got as far back as we could to the forward of one of the fobs, and we just were there overnight, and then went back in to get organised. Paul had moved forward to get help, to get treated and surgery, and the boys went and formed a guard of honour around the container that had Ben in it, and we just prepared to send him home. And it was tough. I don't even actually remember most of that day taking photos. I know that Major Trotter had said to me, I want you to get your photos when we come in onto the ramp ceremony to put him on the plane, and then I want you to put him down, I want you to stand here. And they had sent a couple of other photographers in to help. Yep. I just remember my hand shaking. And I remember going behind the screen in the hangar, like when the boys were talking, like trying to gather myself and really hold it, because that was, you know, I'd done funerals before, but that was too close to home. You know, I wasn't friends, as I said to you, like, I didn't know Paul or Ben before I went to Afghanistan. I'd sat around and talked to him in general, you know, and I remember sitting under a hoochie talking to Ben. But it just, you know, and then you stayed there the next 9 months. And how those blokes just, the engineers and the boys from the battalions and their bosses, how they keep going that day, and how they, you know, I don't know if a lot of people see it from the other side and see that, you know, he's got a platoon commander, platoon sergeant, there's an OC and a CO, and they're all a big battalion. It was just devastating. It was devastating. I really got to know Paul Warren after. When we returned, a lot better. He just inspires me every day. Even now, you know, 2023, I listened to one of his podcasts, and, you know, he just inspires me where he's come from. And as I said to you, I think his greatest story is his story that he will never tell anyone, of the nights and the days that went into, from the day he was hurt, was wounded, to the day he got home, and all the hospitals and all the shit you must have to go through. That story is a story of true courage, absolutely true courage, and to lose a mate like that and then pull yourself up. And like I said, I think he says his training in Muay Thai was what got him where he was, and I fucking believe that. He's an amazing man. To see what he's doing now, and he speaks so eloquently when you speak to him. He knows himself. He's sure of himself, and he's just and I work with some great people, like a couple of snipers, soldiers in general, diggers. You know, that platoon, section commanders, you know, that I worked with there. I treat them like family. They were just, you know, some of the bravest men I've ever met in my life. And I know every tour is different, and we all have that. But we all have our tours, and we see different things. And we see them from different perspectives. For me, those boys, and all of them, the engineers, you know, even the armourers and the Ramey guys that fixed everything and kept us out there and kept doing their job. And I don't think enough credit's given to those people, you know. You know, and with Paul, you know, just how amazing and strong he is. Like, he is somebody you should look at and go, you know, and like Damien Tomkins and Curtis McGrath and people that have gone through horrific injuries. That's courage. That is courage, because you have to pull yourself there. before you can pull anybody else there.
Yep.
And it's very easy for us to sit around the outside and be morally supportive of these people, but you're not in their heads, and that I don't even know how you do that, but it's an absolute pleasure to be friends with him, and he just blows me away. Honestly, he blows me away. I admire him so much.
He's when I got him on, I was blown, exactly what you're saying. I was just blown away
articulate.
by and just the courage, like you said, the courage to keep going when most people would just say, "No, I'm out. I'm tapping out and I'm done." And he's just so, guys. If once you listen to Rachel's episode, go back. If you're a new listener, go back and listen to Paul's story. His story is one of true determination, grit, and never giving up. And that was pretty early on in the deployment, Rach. And did you have you had a couple of other close calls? And I remember you telling me about the day. Yeah, if you can share that story with us. In the wheat field.
Oh yeah. So obviously winter went from really, really hot to really, really cold. I think Bravo Company 1 hour I was out with them on patrol. We were in a koala out there set up. Went out on a patrol, afternoon patrol, probably about 3 o'clock. We had a couple of Dutch PRT guys with us at the front of the patrol. It wasn't a formed road or a formed track or anything. It was lined along a cornfield. I was probably, pepper pottering in. Like, I always got orders, so I always had a task. I wasn't just taking photos. I'd always give, especially with Alpha Company, because I started with them, there was always a task in the mission for me. Like, I was part of that section. This is what you do. There was, I burned shitters. I cleaned the guns. Everything that section did, I did. There was no, I'm the photographer, I'm not doing any of that. I was in it. And, something happened. We were halted. We went onto knees separately, took up each side to protect each other, cover each other's arcs. And the PRT whispering was that they'd seen somebody in the cornfield. So they were calling in the engineers, and we moved back. And they told us to, we're going to be here for a while. You guys, on the right, jump over the fence, over the mud wall. So I know, it was just above knee height.
Yep.
So I put my hand on it with my body armour and all my sword kit and everything. I went to jump over it. Well, all I heard was muffled voices and falling, because it was 2 metres down the other side, straight into the mud in a cornfield. And it went from 50 centimetres to 2 metres. And lucky it was muddy, so we all fell down there, and we just sat there for hours. Let's listen on the radio, and the engineers did their thing. And then they told us we could move, so we took a different route. Obviously, we reorganised. The mission was changed and how we were going to do it, where we were going to go. So we went off and they completed that mission. We moved back into the harbour area in the Koala that late afternoon. Hot, tired, hungry. Obviously, we got ourselves a brew, and the boss said, get your brews and that. And then the warrant officer in charge, Jeremy Faint, of the engineers, called us over, and he had the ID. And to me, it was just this sheer big rod of metal. And at the top it was probably big as a basketball. And in the bottom it was just ripped nails, and then packed with explosives, and then packed with steel ball bearings twisted in the top. And he told us right there and then, if they hadn't seen this kid that was warning out to initiate it, not one of us would have made it out of there. We either would have been killed or had severe amputations. It would have been a mess. He said, but within the constructs of how they'd set it up, and they had built small walls inside the cornfields, so any ricochet would come back in on us. So it wasn't a very big patrol, and I actually vomited in my mouth while I was standing there. I went, that's nasty shit. Like that, I can't even imagine what would have happened to us.
Cold and calculating.
Very, And you just, close calls all the time, You see one of those solo, Stewie with his detection dog, and Solo would come up and sit next to you and go, "Oh, you sitting on anything?" Like just the way it was, just close calls all the time. We were terribly lucky.
That was part 1 of our 2-part interview with Rachel Ingram. Come back in a fortnight's time to hear part 2. On behalf of the team, I just want to wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And I hope that you celebrate with your family and friends in this Christmas New Year period. I want to thank you for listening to True Blue Conversations this year. And we look forward to seeing you again in 2024. And we have an amazing lineup of guests coming up for you in 2024. But from all the team, I just want to wish you a very safe, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And we will see you again in 2024.